Welcome, everyone, and would you please stand? Meeting is called to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have our quorum today. Is my speaker a little loud? Okay, it sounds like hello out there. Okay, so any report from closed session, Mr. Hurst?
No, there are no reports from closed session.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll move to special reports. And the first report, do we have Commander Taylor here today? Okay. Did he, Monique, does he know that we were having the meeting 2 days this time? He might not. Well, okay, he may be here tomorrow. Okay, but do we have CAL FIRE? So, Chief Lewin?
Thank you very much.
Is your green light on?
There we go. I know how to do that. Thank you. Thank you, President Robinette and directors. If you didn't know, there's a big fire in the county. That fire is called the Cuesta Fire. It's, the size of it right now is 2,500 acres, and we're calling it 15% contained. The fire required that we evacuate most of the town of Santa Margarita. We did that on Monday. Today's Tuesday, right? No, today's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Help me out here. It's been a bit of a, it's been one long day here since the fire started, but the fire, we did have to evacuate the town of Santa Margarita when the fire jumped our lines on Monday and threatened the town. We were very fortunate that night that we were able to put in some control lines off of some vineyard roads and do a firing operation about 11 o'clock that night, and that resulted in putting a pretty good defense from the town being threatened. We still have an evacuation order in there, but our commanders right now are currently evaluating that to determine whether we can let those folks back in to the town. It did require that the elementary school didn't get to start class today. They were scheduled for their first day today, and unfortunately school was canceled. We're hearing that we're very famous and popular now with the students there at Santa Margarita Elementary School. The principal thinks otherwise. So the fire will continue on for a while because it's in very steep and rugged terrain. We're in unified command with the Los Padres National Forest, and we have a very solid and strong relationship with them. We had to bring in, I had to order up an incident management team from the state. And the reason I'm kind of going into details of this is because, as you know, this is the sort of scenario that could play out in our community here in Cambria. But an incident, there's different levels of incident management teams. Certainly during a smaller incident when we're in what we call initial attack phase, we handle that locally. When the fire exceeds our initial attack capabilities, we move into what we call extended attack. The logistics start building up and the resource orders start building. And then as we move into the next day and the fire becomes what we call major, we activate some kind of a larger organization. In our county, we're fortunate that we put together what we refer to as a Type 3 incident management team, and they trained here in this room a couple of months ago on a scenario here in Cambria. Well, that team was activated right away on Monday morning, and we had that in place. On Tuesday night, it appeared to me that we had exceeded our ability to maintain the size of organization we were going to need, and I ordered up a statewide Type 1 team. And those folks took over the command of the fire this morning to my relief because our folks were just seriously getting burned out on so much action. The firefighters, there's probably over 1,000 firefighters on the fire now. They're dealing with all the stress issues of drought that are affecting that area as well as this area with a lot of trees falling. That's a big concern for us this year. There's already been one fatality and one permanently injured firefighter that actually lives in San Luis Obispo. Who can't walk anymore from trees falling. This is a big issue, and obviously I bring this up again because if we have a fire in our community here, the dangers of trees falling is really a big problem for us in California right now because of the drought. And I certainly can answer any questions about the fire if you have anything specific about that. Just yes, sir.
It's not on the fire specifically, but you had indicated the belief that you could obtain some grant money for removal of trees here. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Certainly. So there is one grant we, of course, already have, and that's the PG&E grant to remove the trees on the CSD property. That grant is ready and available, and we are working currently with the county planning department to take a look at an emergency permit for the CSD-owned property only in the district, including the Fiscalini Ranch. Once we have that, we'll bring that to you for your approval during a regular staff report, and then with that, we'll be able to start cutting trees with your approval in that. So we're keeping that going and trying to utilize that. There are other grants that are done, and I'm not going to be able to get into the details because I don't have them written down here, but we have multiple grants out, two through the greenhouse gas grants for the use in Cambria, and then we have a state responsibility area grant, SRA grant, that we're also applying for. So that's being done through the Fire Safe Council, and they had I think you may have received an email even today that talks about some of the details that the focus group has been working on, and there's some answers in there about the grant itself. But we continue to be extremely tuned in to trying to figure out how to get money and get permits, and doing that all without getting in troubles with regulatory agencies, and take care of this business. I spend a lot of time personally on it, and my staff spends even more time on it. So hopefully that answered that. A couple things in the report that we gave that I wanted to point out is your water tender has been responding to fires, particularly the water tender, but of course the fire engine crew itself. The crew, I guess, recently on August 6th responded to a fire just near here on Ponderosa grounds there, and a half-acre fire caused from a vehicle, and we're successfully in putting that out. And then, of course, the water tender responded to the fire we had up near Bennett Peak, north of the Hearst Castle there. Very inaccessible area, and we used them on that. And then, of course, the fires that we had here above Scott Rock. As you may, I think you all know that Captain Bitto has announced his retirement. This is a long career that has served Cambria quite well, and he's known throughout the county for many things, particularly his work in training people in water rescue, and he will be missed throughout the county on that because of that. And so he'll be leaving the department on the 24th, and I've been working with the general manager and staff on the process we're going to use to hire behind him, and so you'll hear more about that, I'm sure. We're now, of course, doing all the fire safety plans for new construction here in Cambria, and that's working quite well. We have Captain Gomes, who actually was raised in Cambria. He's a native son of Cambria, and he's doing the new construction reviews on buildings here that are done, and he works under the supervision of our county fire marshal, Battalion Chief Lori Donnelly. And so far, we haven't seen any hiccups in that switch over to that process, so we're pleased with that transition. The contractors continue to do work on the parcels that were identified needing work, and the homeowners themselves the parcel owners themselves didn't take care of it, so that work's being done. And I know, President Robinette, you'll be happy to hear that I understand the piles over on Park Hill area are finally being chipped. So,
thank you.
On the CAL FIRE inspection side, over 3,000 inspections have been done, and the good news is that people are complying. 90% of the people that get a first inspection comply, and by the time they get to the second inspection. The fire prevention signs, as you know, are up and around town, and they've been, the carpenters for that was the firefighters at the station did the work on that. And again, we're continuing to work. As a matter of fact, last night, as I was touring Dan Buckshire, the CAO of the county, on the tour of the fire, we spent time talking about the permit issues in Cambria, and I know he sent an email to the planning director today in that regard. So we're trying, all of us, you and the county and CAL FIRE, and everybody's trying to get this behind us, this issue of permits. So, I think that's all I can offer unless there's any questions.
Director Rice?
I'm glad to, thank you, Chief Lewin, for your report. I'm glad to hear the county, and you had a chance to talk to Dan Buckshire about the permitting. My question on that was, I thought we had given authority to the general manager to apply and do whatever needs to be done to get a permit for the, I know that was the blanket permit, but is there a way that we can, so that we don't have to wait until the next regular board meeting or even a special meeting, that we can, I don't know, maybe because it's not on the agenda, we couldn't do it, but.
Correct, and
I just want to get this done as quickly as possible once we get some agreement between the county and us on removing the trees, at least on our properties.
and the direction that was given, you're referencing the July board meeting, which I wasn't here, and the board directed district council to work with the county regarding the issue of indemnification, if you remember correctly. It's my understanding that the county still has concerns with that, and regarding the permit that Chief Lewin is referring to, that would require a special a board meeting for you to
require
approve that.
board approval.
As soon as Chief Lewin hears some information, him and I are working really closely on that. What we'll do is we'll agendize that as a special board meeting. If there's any other things that need to be addressed, such as the groundwater management plan, adopting by resolution and things like that, we'd like to try to get that on there too. But Chief and I are working together on that to get it completed as soon as possible.
And that's just on the district properties. Are we also still pursuing anything on a blanket permit, or have we kind of let that one go by the wayside?
No,
Do we have a process for
it's my
folks?
understanding, I'll let Chief Lewin comment on that, is that it's still up to the individual homeowner. From the conversations I've had with county staff and with Chief Lewin, there seems to be a steady flow of residents from Cambria going down to the county and applying for that permit for their individual property. If you've noticed, there's a lot of additional activity in town. You see Davies Tree Service and things like that. And you probably hear chainsaws buzzing quite a bit around town, but that's an indication that that the inspections done by CAL FIRE, we're seeing the benefits of those inspections, and those are resulting in, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, those are resulting in individual homeowners going down to the county and doing their due diligence and getting the trees removed. I know early on there was a concern relating to the cost associated with individual homeowners, but from what I understand, and maybe Chief Lewin can comment on this, is that that process is moving forward. We're not involved in that. The individual homeowners are taking responsibility, and they're doing a good job, and they're moving forward with the permitting process on an individual basis. Now, just as a point of clarification, when we say the trees on the ranch, the 190 trees, that's really the backside of the wastewater facility right there. Is that fire break right there? There's an entire fire break. And there's grant funding available. We have in-kind services, about 2,000 hours with the 3 Cs. And so once Chief Lewin gets clarification from the county, I get clarification from the county, and District Council has a chance to review it, we'll be bringing that back in a staff report. And I'd really like to have a special board meeting. I know you guys are just biting at the bit to have another special board meeting, but I think it's important, and we have that. So.
Thank you. Any other questions for? Yes, Director Thompson.
This is really, I think, more toward the general manager, but does have to do with fire issues. At the chamber board meeting today, there was a discussion about the brush alongside the highway on the west end of town, and the fire hazard that was considered. And so they suggested, or at least it was suggested, that perhaps the 3 Cs could also be involved in that as part of their effort here, because and Supervisor Gibson actually made that suggestion.
Director Thompson, do you have a more specific area? Is it right on Highway 101 on the west side, heading south?
It's part of the Caltrans right-of-way, actually.
Okay.
I think that they decided they didn't want to do it, so perhaps 3 Cs might be used for that purpose.
I'll look into that. I have one thing real quick, President Robinette. I would like Chief Lewin to comment on the local hazard mitigation plan there's been a lot of discussion about that, a lot of dialogue, and one of the things that I wanted to have him share with you is the grant that he's applied for, and which would allow us to start that process if we're successful in getting that grant.
Yes, please go ahead.
So there's every year the Department of Homeland Security gives the county a block of money. It varies in amounts, anywhere, say, $250,000 to over almost $400,000 over the years. Every year we don't know. This year we actually don't know the full amount because of something with FEMA and state OES that does it. But we know it's coming, and we're under, and we have to figure out how to spend it. The folks that make the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on how to spend it are nicknamed the Gang of Five, and that is the county sheriff, the county public health officer, one representative from the police chiefs, one representative from the fire chiefs, not the county fire chief, and then myself. So we meet, we look at all the options on how to use this money within the guidelines of the grant, and so this year there's an opportunity for us to apply for a grant to complete the local hazard mitigation plan. There'll be some bureaucratic hurdles to get through on who is the lead agency on it, how it gets done, but I submitted the paperwork for about $30,000 to complete, to hire a consultant and to have staff time for your folks here to work on that hazard mitigation plan. I'm pretty confident that I'm going to get the support of my colleagues on the Gang of Five, and then we'll submit it. I believe it fits the criteria for a FEMA grant. The county fire department, I don't want people to get hung on this, will be the lead agency, but obviously that's really a perfunctory process so that we can get the funds and account for the funds. And we do this for all the fire departments. We've bought equipment for City of Atascadero Fire Department, but the county fire department had to be the processor of that. But it was still all assigned to those other local fire departments. We'll do it the same way here in that process. So I don't want people to go, well, wait a minute, this isn't, no grants will be, we've already applied to the Gang of Five for it, but final approval of that grant, whether you want me to move forward on that, I think should come back to you. And then obviously when the process for completing this local hazard mitigation plan is done, the staff here at the CSD will participate in that process. They require community meetings on that process for local hazard mitigation plans, so the community will have time to chime in on that. And then approval of the plan will be yours to do. So.
Thank you. And I know we appreciate that update because there has been questions in the community, why aren't we doing this? And actually we are in the process, and it will, as you say, be brought back to the board, and it will have community input. But we're beyond just sort of thinking we ought to do something. I think we're definitely in a process, so I appreciate that very much. And the writing of the plan will easily take a year with community meetings, with writing, with gathering data. So it's not a 2-month process. This will be a year-long process probably. So. Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Director Rice?
Just had one question. You brought up Captain Gomez doing the inspections. Are we training anybody that's currently on our firefighting team to do that? Do we have any plans to do that kind of training? Because I know that it would be nice if we could have somebody that wasn't necessarily.
Sure. So Captain Bitto has been the person at the station who's been doing fire safety plans. So of course he's going to retire. So let me reassure you that if the transition back to a fire chief is the way the board goes, I promise you can write this down, that we will make sure that that fire chief is prepared to take back the inspections and everything else that we're doing. We'll make sure there's an absolute smooth transition back. Most fire chiefs, if they've ever had any time in fire prevention, have experience in doing some kind of plan review. So it is complicated, but if you've achieved the rank of fire chief, generally you've had some experience with that. I mean, I was a fire marshal myself for 5 years, so it does require that.
And I wanted to comment on that a little bit, too. What you mentioned today in your report was he is looking at 2 new construction plans, correct?
Correct. He's all about new construction.
Right. So there's not a lot of business there, is there?
You know, I don't know the numbers unless we wrote them down. We'll try to include those numbers in each
Yeah,
of the report,
okay.
so
Yeah.
you'll know.
All right, because I know our chief had done
It
that.
actually is in here. Residential rough hydro inspections, 2, site visits, 3, engine company commercial fire inspections, 5. So there's a list of prevention efforts there. It isn't much, as you know, because of the moratoriums. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And I appreciate the coordination that has to take place. The wood that was along Windsor as you leave Park Hill on the right, just before you get to the wastewater plant, was really, really dry. And it was huge stacks of wood. There was at least 4 or 5 stacks of wood. And it was an interesting process because there were other issues across the street. And it's the agencies. Across the street, of course, it is state parks. And then as where the wood was, that actually was county right-of-way where the wood was sitting, but the wood apparently belonged to private property homeowners. Not homeowners, but private property lots. So it was fairly confusing, but the good news is that was really dry wood, and it's really very nice to see it gone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, may I hate to steal Chief Lewin's thunder, but you know, for reasons of transparency, I always want to get things out on the table. And the local hazard mitigation plan was one of them, and I'm glad we clarified that. The second issue is the SAFER grant. I know it's and so at the meeting that I wasn't at, and I'm never going to miss any more meetings again, is I assumed, and we know what that happens when you assume something, that Director Rice had made a motion regarding the SAFER grant to be put on a future agenda item. There was not a second, so therefore I met with Chief Lewin and said I assume that the board doesn't support that process. That in turn was passed on to the firefighters, and which resulted in some concerns within the community. I was notified by one of our ad hoc committee members that Jerry, that's not exactly the silence of the board didn't necessarily represent that this issue will be continued to be discussed with the fire ad hoc committee and talked about. That's my understanding. And the only thing that I would ask Chief Lewin is has that train left the station? Do we have the opportunity to contact the people at the federal level and say, okay, can we put this in abeyance for a while till we discuss it, get our financial house in order, decide what fire agency we're going to go with? Are we keeping our own fire agency? Those type things. So, you know, those have been some sensitive subjects within the community. The local hazard fire mitigation plan and the SAFER grant. Now, obviously, right now, based on my general manager's report and the financial manager's report, we're not in a financial position to support that. However, I do want to be respectful of the efforts that went in by Emily and the staff there regarding the SAFER grant. And so if there is an opportunity, and I'd have to ask Chief about this, an opportunity to say, hey, you know, we're in a transitional period right now. The community's not sure. The board's not sure where we're going as far as fire safety goes. Could we put that grant application in abeyance, or at least in a holding pattern for a while, till we continue to have a dialogue with the ad hoc committee, the full board, and the community?
Well, I'll gather some information. I'll make a call to FEMA and find out the status of the grant and how much time we have, and then what we can do to put it in on stall. One comment I'd want to make is getting the SAFER grant should not be contingent on whether you hire a fire chief or you stay with CAL FIRE, because the SAFER grant can be used either way. So it's really a decision for you to make, and we'll respond to that appropriately. The issue, of course, is, you know, the other issue of it, of course, is the finance part of it, is how do you fund based on the amount that it was and those sorts of issues, and of course all the limitations of a SAFER grant. And those are things that you can discuss. I'll get the information for you, and then when you want, with all that information, you can make a decision.
Good. I appreciate that from everyone, and that is, I appreciate the clarification, because we do have an ad hoc committee that is going to be looking into fire resources, and this can also be part, if it can be, then to be more thorough and really have the full picture of the grant and have a recommendation from ad hoc when it's time. Yes, Director Thompson?
Yes, I was the person that had asked that that issue be looked at along with the ad hoc committee. And in addition to looking at the grant, and of course we understand that the grant was carried with it a cost of another $250,000 from CSD, and so that's really one of the issues we have to look at, is whether or not we can scale it down, or we can make some revisions to the existing proposal. The other concern I had, and I was in charge of the Los Angeles federal grant program for the police and fire department, and so the concern I had was one of process, because in Los Angeles something like that would not have been submitted without going through the approval process and getting properly vetted financially. And so I want our general manager here to make sure that all departments submit applications through the proper process, so that we can have our fiscal person look at it, so this board can consider it, and before it's sent out. I think that should apply to any grants that we seek, is that we have all that information first without sending it to the funding agency.
Thank you, because we don't want to find ourselves in confusing situations like this. And so I think another part of that will come out of that is a review of policy. It should be clear enough that there's a chain of command. But if it's not clearly defined, then we would want to include that, I would think. Okay. Director Rice?
Just one last clarification. The hazard mitigation plan is not just for fire, it's for all hazards, correct?
Correct, Director Rice.
Okay,
it's for earthquakes, tsunamis, anything you can imagine.
I just want to make sure that, and the county has one, but we need to have one for our own community in order that there, in case of emergency, for FEMA to come in and say, help us out. Is that correct?
It identifies mitigation actions that can be taken to prevent a calamity. So when FEMA money does come available, the district could then attain it.
We already know what we need to do.
Yeah. And when there is a disaster, oftentimes money then comes and other communities can get it. So even sometimes when there's disasters in other places. So
okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Everything from that OES director in the county says, Ron Alsop, is that it's good for Cambria to have a local hazard mitigation plan. So
thank you.
Okay.
One more question.
And Vice President Cliff?
One other area relative to the SAFER grant and relative to the financial situation that we've been talking about, it's my understanding that under that grant there are some limitations in terms of personnel abilities to move personnel around. It would be very important for us to make sure we have a clarification of that, because even if the financial part is workable, we don't want to get caught on another technicality within the grant.
I'll try to put together a document that just in bullet form that just sort of lays out all the information I can gather on this particular application, the amount, the shortfall, the time period that the grant lasts. I'll try to just get some facts for you. I'll probably be getting most of those from Engineer Toronto. Sorry, I probably need more sleep. Engineer Emily, and because she's done a great job of trying to get lots of grants for this community. So she really has a side job that probably if she ever wants one. So I'll do that. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Lewin. I have a request for public comment on 2B. Elizabeth Bettenhausen. Monique.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm Elizabeth Bettenhausen from Cambria, and I'm so glad that I was reminded of the checking houses by CAL FIRE, and I'm so glad that we have brought up the chain of command issue, The 3 young gentlemen came to our house the other day, charming individuals who ought to have a high salary. Okay. They also passed out these big plastic bags full of all these papers, many of them repetitive. And I said, how come you've got plastic bags in this day and age? They said, that's not in our job description. Then they went across the street and hung it on the neighbor's door knob. And they went next door and hung it on that neighbor's doorknob. And they went to the next one and hung it on. I said, hold it a second. Do you know that 1/3 of the houses in Cambria are second homes? No, they didn't know that. That's not in our job description. Then I said, well, we've got some theft problems in Cambria, mail theft lately, and you might not want to put those things there to advertise the fact that this is an empty house. The third thing I said, check these plants between us and our neighbor, would you please? Oh, yeah, they look healthy. They're no fire hazard. I said, I chopped them down the other day so they wouldn't touch our house anymore. And they said, well, maybe the woman next door, she could chop hers off and then they wouldn't touch her house. That would mean they would be within 1 foot of our house and 1 foot of her house. I said, so the sap in these healthy trees would mitigate the fire. Right. Now, I know you've got dead and dying trees on your agenda every month, and so I won't bring that up. I finally want to say one more thing, though, with the gentleman still here. I hope that somebody on the FEMA Local Hazard Mitigation Planning Group represents El Nino. I want to know who is going to look at Cambria in terms of potential flooding, especially with our wastewater sitting where it is and our new water sitting where it is. I think that I forwarded to you the handbook from FEMA. I know that you're all totally up to date on this, but I hope that we include not only fire, but the fire putter-outer, but also the immense flooding that could happen in this town, as you experientially well know. So I'm glad that there's a planning underway. Oh, whoops. It won't help with the El Nino this year, will it? Because it's going to take at least a year to write the plan. So maybe El Nino will show up 2 years in a row, and then we'd have a plan to mitigate the effects of the poor child, little Jesus, El Nino. Oops, now we've got Godzilla Jesus. It's a really weird way we name things, isn't it?
Thank you. Okay, moving on now to on item 3, because we had the change of dates.
I'm done.
Well, I thought that was for me. Yeah. I thought, okay, moving along. Anyway, as you all know, we did change the date. There was a request for that. It did impact both of our acknowledgement presentations from both Dean Flores and also from Craig Uferheid. And so they are rescheduled to come back and make their presentations to us. Mr. Uferheid will be here in October, and Mr. Flores will resume again in September.
Okay.
Okay.
There's no chance of doing that tomorrow.
Pardon? No.
We couldn't. Okay.
Okay. So now we move on to item 4, agenda review. Do we have any additions, deletions, consent items to be discussed, pulled? Okay. Seeing nothing, then we will move into. Let's see, item 5 on public comment. We don't have anything under item 5. So we'll move on to item 6. Item 6 is the general manager's report. And first we'll have public comment on item 6. I have a couple of requests. And take them in order.
Before the report, ma'am?
We can do it before. That's been my advice, Mr. Hirsch.
Either before or during is the way the bylaw
Before or
provides.
during.
Yeah.
It is an option, and I've been going with before on public comments all the way through. Okay, so we do have then some public comment, and the first one today was from Jerry Wood.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Board. I'm Jerry Wood from Cambria. Thank you again for the opportunity to give my public statement on record to show the support for Cambria and the Cambria Fire Department and our concerns we have for some of the items in the General Manager's updated report dated August 19th. As we all are acutely aware, we are an extremely high fire hazard area and time. It is essential that the focus of this board and the citizens of Cambria be on fire and life safety for all of us. Keeping this in mind from the report, the General Manager appears to have more emphasis on wastewater and facilities segments of the CCSD than the Fire Department. The statements in the report are inconsistent with what should be the priority of fire and life safety. In the section of the report for reduction of expenditures, items number 3 and 4 on page 3, reference for openings in the wastewater and facilities and 2 24-hour positions in the administrative services officer and the district engineer. All 4 of these would be, I assume, filled when grant funding is obtained. Keeping in mind what was just said about the SAFER grant, this should have been something, in my opinion, should have been taken care of a long time ago, but I will be anxiously awaiting the responses from Chief Lewin and the board on the SAFER grant. But it appears that not going along with the SAFER grant at this time creates another problem for fire and life safety issues in the city, in Cambria. And related to the SAFER grant, in addition to on item 6 on page 4, states that reduced overtime with the fire department would be a cost savings method. With the SAFER grant having been, if it was put in place, we would have 3 full-time firefighters in place, which would reduce or eliminate the need for additional overtime for the budget. This would be something that would be very beneficial to Cambria. Item number 6 on page 6 is confusing to me. Under the fire operations section of the report is indicated that, quote, we will work with administration to begin the hiring process behind him, this being the retirement of Captain Bitto. Going back to item 5 in the cost reduction, not filling that position on a permanent basis is, I don't understand. Why can't we fill it as on a permanent basis? This position should be a permanent position, should not be a temporary one. And this board has been on record as saying that they were all for the upward mobility of staff. I got about 2 seconds more. So.
Finish it, please. Okay.
I strongly urge this board that was elected by the citizens of Cambria to act in the best interest and to take the initiative to direct the general manager to reevaluate his priorities and place fire and life safety over wastewater at this point in time.
Thank you. Next public comment on item 6, Jerry Farrell.
Jerry Farrell, Cambria resident and strong supporter of keeping Cambria Fire local. Board, management, when I saw that the transition between the CCSD and Cambria Fire was almost seamless, it brought out my cynical side. It's as though this has been in the plan since Chief Miller told you 2 years ago he was retiring. Then you didn't replace him, and now you're talking about not replacing a fire captain. That bothers me. You did hire a PR person, though. I think your priorities are just a bit off.
Thank you. Next on item 6, Elizabeth Bettenhausen.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm Elizabeth Bettenhausen from Cambria. Since I was last year, I turned 73. I love it. 73 is terrific because in a situation like this, I can use it as an excuse, probably unreliable. But I recall responding to this report after it was given, not only when it's in written form. So I guess my memory's a little iffy there, but I'll say what I'm going to say, and then I look forward to to the general manager's response to my comments. As he's certainly going to respond, I'm sure, to the previous comments. Comment number one, in Mr. Gresson's letter that you have in your agenda to the California Department of Water Resources, it says, quote, "We are currently completing a detailed EIR, which will further support ongoing efforts to obtain a regular coastal development permit from the county," end of quote. On page 14 of the Finance Officer's report, you are reminded that you approved $1,429,258 in this fiscal year budget to support the coastal development permit process. It is quite clear that the expenses for Landwatch, to which he alludes in his report, are more than $1 million less than what you've already approved in the budget for the coastal permit. You clearly need the grant. We, ratepayers, need the grant. My question is, when will the RBF company have the draft EIR finished and ready for public review? In May, Madam President, you said in a letter to all of us that you hoped that by the end of the year, the final one would be ready for review. When? That's my question. Without it, no $4 million. The other comment I have to make is only this. I wrote, as you know, to Justin Smith, the supervisor of water, a month ago and asked about a billing issue. Because in the billing on July 11th, it said that there was an internal account of CCSD that had used 93,434 units of water. I said to myself, my God, that's a bit much. That means that that internal account was billed for almost 70 million gallons. I have not heard from him, and I have not heard from you, although I just copied you in the second time that I sent it to him. According to billing, almost 3 times more was used by that account than the total production of water from the wells in the 2 months. So something's fishy here. I don't know how that's going to be solved internally with pay attention to your meters and that's what I want to know, my last sentence, Madame. What is the current usage number for that account? And how is it decided what numbers the CCSD reports as required to the State Department of Water? I assume it was not 93,000 units, but I'm not sure because that report was sent in on the 15th of June. Friends, please give us transparent information that is simultaneously accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on item 6, Bob Putney.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board and staff. I, too, wanted to address the general manager's report regarding the priorities. I understand that you're in a fiscal tough situation and you have to make tough decisions. We all have to tighten our belts when we don't have enough money. I would just ask that, again, as the previous speaker said, that you focus on public safety, that our department would not be reduced in staffing with the retirement of Captain Bitto, and you'd leave a position unfunded, as was mentioned in the general manager's report. And at the same time, I understand reducing costs everywhere, but reducing overtime right now where the state of California is bringing in active military and National Guard to fight fires. If you ask Chief Lewin or anybody else in the state's pretty well drawn down, and it's not just because of California, it's because of the western states. So we need all of our people on the line. If we're lucky, we'll have a CAL FIRE engine and our engine in town if we get a wildfire. If we're not lucky, we'll just have our engine and there'll be a cover engine on the way. This isn't a good time, even though I know you're financially crunched, to be cutting costs in public safety. And I hope that you would put that at the top of the heap and protect our community and do the good job that I know you all want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no further requests for public comment, General Manager Gruber.
I took good notes, so I hope I can answer everybody's question. Is there one other public comment?
Well, I apologize that I don't have it here. Number 10? Okay, we're on item 6. Did you want to wait? No? Okay. You're good for item 10? Oh, you want to? Okay, come on down. Thank you for raising your hand and letting us know.
Mary Ann Meyer, and I'm in support of our local fire department. I have a problem with the manager's report, first of all, holding a position for wastewater, excuse me, and one in facilities resources. And you are actively working upon hiring an admin tech. Where are your priorities when you want to do away with the captain's position? And what do you think this is doing to the morale of our local fire department? You've already hired a CAL FIRE chief, which I'm sure is doing an excellent job. But you have to consider our local fire department and our firefighters who have been there for years. That's all I had. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, now we are ready to move on to the manager's report.
Thank you, Madam President and board members. I took copious notes, and hopefully I can answer all the questions. And so I want to answer the questions first before I start with my general manager's report. These are recommendations to the board. I could have done a better job, I think, on number 5, not filling a permanent basis, the upcoming retirement of the fire captain. I didn't go into a lot of detail, but from an operational perspective, I did discuss this with Captain, I just demoted him, Chief Lewin, and we thought the best thing at this time is on a temporary basis, as Captain Bitto departs from the organization, we would give an engineer the opportunity to fill that position, and then we would give a reservist the opportunity to fill that engineer position. That's consistent with what Mr. Wood said about giving our employees the opportunity for upward mobility. And so those aren't permanent decisions. Those are decisions right now. And the reason Chief Lewin and I thought that would be the best decision for the organization and for the community right now is that would allow the ad hoc committee to do their job. It would also allow the community to provide additional input to the board and the ad hoc committee on the direction that we may or may not want to go. So we're not doing away with the position. We're not filling it on a permanent basis. We're giving an existing engineer the opportunity to fill that position, hone his or her skills, her skills, step into a leadership role, get some additional experience, and then backfill the engineer one with our reservist force. So we're not reducing the fire department staff. The overtime, I can really appreciate what Bob said about overtime. But within any department, whether it's police or fire or admin, or although we're all salary, not all of us, but water, wastewater, I think we need to always make sure we're not compromising public safety, but make sure we keep that in check. And this was the first time that I've actually asked the fire department to provide me with a list of their vacation schedules. We've been silent on that before, and for planning purposes, that's a good idea. So within the IAFF MOU, it's a lot of acronyms, there is a clause in there that says provide the general manager twice a year with your vacation schedule. They did that for Chief Lewin. I let him run the department, let Eric run the department. And then that's helpful in reducing that overtime also. So by initiating that, we've done that. So that takes care of the fire department part of it. The openings that on number 3 and number 4, what I talk about, I would never put one department above another. And I didn't didn't mean to indicate that in these reports. So we had a person exit the wastewater department. We are staffed with 4 people right now. We're going to keep it at that. That would be my recommendation to you. We had 3 full-time people in the facilities and resources. I don't know how we're going to do it with 2 people, but tough times bring tough measures. So it's Carlos and Alberto, and they're going to be doing everything. So you budgeted 1 additional 2 24-hour positions for the administration department, 1 in support of Monique. Monique's not getting her person right now, and Bob's not getting their person. I dealt with that already. So those are things. So it's consistent, and these are just recommendations. So anything that you'd want to talk about, hey Jerry, we want you to come back with more. We want you to come back with deeper cuts. Just let me know. So.
Yeah, just one comment on the overtime. I think, as with any such request, if overtime that's budgeted is not sufficient, then the chief can come to the board and request additional overtime. I don't think that's that's a problem in any jurisdiction. That's always the option.
Yeah, and there were some good points brought up about I think we're keeping the department fully staffed, and from a technical and operational perspective, we probably have more resources right now than we've ever had. It's kind of the way I look at it. It's really encouraging, and I'm neutral in this process. It's really encouraging to hear Chief Lewin say that he's had captains and battalion chiefs involved in multiple facets of the organization's, of the fire department's organization. What's encouraging about that is we're not really spreading our staff really thin. We're using their resources right now, and we're paying for a chief, so we're getting a lot of bang for our buck. Mrs. Bentonhausen's comment regarding.
I'm not married, thank you.
Miss? Dr. Bentonhausen, I'm sorry. Dr. Bentonhausen's comment regarding the $4.3 million and it being tied to the EIR, that's not accurate. That is not a requirement of the $4.3 million. And then Patrick will go into much more detailed explanation of the finances. The internal account that Dr. Bentonhausen was referring to is not potable water. It's the 9P2 well. The district entered into an agreement with Mr. Clyde Warren. Oh, Bob, help me out, back in the early 90s on this one. Yeah, 90s or so. What we're doing is we're in the process of evaluating that agreement and making sure that the water that is being withdrawn from that well is consistent with the terms of that agreement. And so that is called an internal account. That account does not represent unaccounted for water. It doesn't represent billed water. It does represent a lot of water, though, a lot of water. And so we, if the board would like me to get some more information on it, I'll be more than happy to. Okay, so I was just told that the reads on that are incorrect, and we're working on that to get the accurate numbers. I hope I touched on Mrs. Farrell's question about the fire captain. I hope I clarified that. Touched on Bob's question. Touched on Elizabeth's question. Touched on Jerry Wood's question, and then we'll go into some more details. My general manager's report. I wrote this as I indicated on August 11th. Just some things really. Since this time, what's today, the 19th? I'm like Chief Lewin. Today's the 19th, 8 days ago. Been a lot of activity. I think a lot of positive activity. I'd like to thank Supervisor Bruce Gibson and County Administrator Dan Buckshire. Dan Buckshire is a good friend of mine. I think I ruffled his feathers a little bit or punched him in the nose, and I apologize for that. We have a good relationship, and I need to continue to work with Dan. Where we are in the process right now with the Prop 84 grant funding, and I got an email from Dan this morning, is that they are sending the paperwork up to the Department of Water Resources for the soft cost. And then in conjunction with that, there's another agenda item later in the agenda for you to consider regarding the indemnification portion that the county has concerns with. The county was advised by their district council or their county council that there is a certain amount of risk associated with forwarding that paperwork up to the DWR as it relates to the Land Watch lawsuit. The bottom line is the county doesn't want to be held responsible for that amount of money for whatever reason. We're continuing to work with the county every day. That's all I've been doing for the last week or so. Bob has been doing a fantastic job. I'm kind of a glass half full kind of guy. I'm optimistic that this will be resolved. I really will. There's been some questions and concerns about a groundwater management plan. The district did do a groundwater management plan. It's my understanding as of this morning that the dialogue that Senator Dean Flores had with the Department of Water Resources, that they were okay with our groundwater management plan. There are some certain things within that plan that need to be updated, such as mapping and a few other criteria. The county has asked the CCSD for a detailed timeline relating to the updates associated with that groundwater management plan, and Bob's in the process of providing that. We should be able to adopt that groundwater management plan through resolution, which would be a part of a special board meeting. So that'll address that concern. The concerns relating to the groundwater management plan are county concerns, and the concerns relating to the indemnification relating to the lawsuit are county concerns that I'm confident that we can work through. The Department of Water Resources did indicate to the county that there is risk associated with that, and the county's taking a conservative legal approach to sending the necessary paperwork up to get the remainder of those funds. So when you write something like this, it's kind of old news. It's like a newspaper. I'm sorry, Kathy. It's sort of like a newspaper. But the bottom line is that the Land Watch lawsuit is having an adverse effect on the district. It's cost us about $160,000 so far. The financials that Patrick is going to share with you have a little bit better outlook than we originally showed you. And that's for two reasons. It's because we've reduced cost, told people to stop spending, and we've received some more revenues that we thought. So the original $565,000 deficit, and I'll let Patrick go into that showed at the end of November is significantly less than that. With these recommendations and other recommendations, if the board directs me to say, Jerry, I want you to go back and sharpen your pencil, I think it would be prudent and a good idea to assume that we're not going to get that money, even though I just said that it's looking good. I would say, if I were you, I would say Jerry and Patrick and Monique and your senior management staff, Bob, go back and after Patrick shows you where we're going to be through January now, if we receive the other grant funding, I would say come back, Jerry, and show me how you're going to do this without the $4.3 million. Some of the larger vendors that we owe money to, such as CDM Smith, I've been in contact with them extensively the last week. And there's really a willingness on their part to say, hey, Jerry, don't worry about the retainer rate now. Don't worry about the $123,000 for the work that's already been completed, those type of things, because it's a relationship type of thing. It's a partnership. I'm also meeting with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, the Executive Director, Ken Harris, and John Rocky next week. And as Patrick will show you, the initial sampling requirements for the EWS is extensive, but rightfully so. I think the Regional Water Quality Control Board was absolutely in line with what the requirements were. They need that data. They need to have that information. it's running between $15,000 and $17,000 a month for that sampling. That cost will not continue forever. That's a big chunk of change. So the conversation I want to have with the Regional Water Quality Control Board is when can we anticipate that ending? And that's important for two reasons: for long-term financial forecasting, but also as we work with the rate implementation committee, on a real cost associated with operating the system. So that's where we are with the process right now. There's been a lot done. I really want to thank the Budget Ad Hoc Committee, President Robinette and Vice President Merle Clift. You know, they gave me my marching orders, and we put these things together. I could have done a better job on number 5, and I apologize about the captain position. As I wrote it here, it shows that we're not going to backfill. That's just not true. Thank goodness Chief Miller had the foresight to look ahead and have a good, strong, vibrant reserve force that has the ability to backfill engineer positions. And thank goodness we have good qualified engineers that can backfill captains' positions. That's really what it's all about. So I can answer any questions on the recommendations. I think under the general manager's report, the budget committee asked us to put a PowerPoint presentation together as part of the finance manager's report, which is a subsection of my general manager's report. If there's any questions about Bob's report or anything like that. One other note that I have about a timeline. We do have a timeline for the EIR. It shows completion in about January of 2016. Under President Robinette's leadership, she initiated a phone call with Rita Garcia, and we're having conversations with Bob and President Robinette and myself every 2 weeks now. We have standing meetings, and we're seeing how we can lessen that time, how we can reduce that time on the EIR, while still giving plenty of time on public comment and making sure that the process takes place. So just a lot of moving pieces right now, but I think I'd really like to thank President Robinette and Director Cliff for just taking a real good leadership role in all this. And we try to be transparent as much as we can. I'll shut up here in a minute. We try to be transparent as much as we can. With the limited amount of staff, I think we do a pretty good job. I think there's times where, you know, we can do a better job. So I acknowledge everything what everybody said today, and I think that the comments were good comments. So, thank you.
Thank you. Just a proposal to the board with the budget manager here as part of the general manager's report. Do we want to move now to his PowerPoint presentation and then come back for questions on any of the other general manager's categories?
I prefer that way, but
yes, I would. Any problems? Okay. All right. We're very happy to see you here today, and so.
Madam President, may I just say that the reason we're having a meeting on Wednesday is because Patrick could not make it on Thursday, and he's a real important part of this team. He's done a great job. He always has a positive attitude. He gets in there and rolls his sleeves up and does all the work in the office that anybody else has done. So thank you, Patrick, and thank you for being here. It makes my life a lot easier. As a point of clarification, we're still having a Thursday meeting because it's regarding Stage 3 conservation measures. And we did a 10-day posting, so we couldn't change that. So thank you, everybody, for showing up on a Wednesday. And if you want to not do anything tomorrow, come back. So.
Well, we're happy to have you with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Robinette, members of the board, members of the public. I apologize that I can't be here tomorrow, but it's kind of essential that I go back for my final, hopefully, medical issue. I would like to take just a few minutes to update everyone on our cash status. Probably, I was out for a month, so this is probably a month later than we should be talking about this. But I think hopefully we kind of caught it in time. Where do I point this thing? Back here? There we go. Okay, initially, we've been reporting, when I first got here, the finance manager is reporting the LAIF balance, and LAIF balance is only part of our picture. So we started reporting our total cash balance, which included our checking account and our money market account at HOB. What I realized as the cash started getting lower was that the one component that we had not looked at was outstanding checks, which is substantial, especially as we're down now to only $2 million. We've got almost $1 million in outstanding checks at the end of July. So I started preparing a projected cash flow, and I have two of them. I have one for the current month and then one for the next 6 months. The current month reflects that we had almost $2.3 million in cash in bank accounts at the end of July. However, we had $900,000 in outstanding checks, which brought our actual usable cash down to only $1.4 million. In generic terms, we expected about $300,000 in utility billing receipts this month. Our miscellaneous expenses, I projected at $100,000. We had pending invoices of $182,000. We had 2 payrolls, which is about $350,000, and then we had recurring monthly expenditures of $108,000. So the projection was we'd have about $944,000 at the end of the current month. The pending invoices I've listed here. The big one was to Rutan and Tucker. We had a big one to LAFCO, a couple to Liebert and Cassidy, and then a whole bunch, like 100 that we hadn't paid for miscellaneous other. Actually, more than that, probably 150. So the pending invoices were $182,000.
What was Rutan and Tucker for?
That's the Land Watch lawsuit.
Oh, thank you.
Monthly expenditures, retiree health costs are $14,000. PG&E, we routinely spend $35,000. The CAL FIRE contract I put in here, I've done a revision to the long-term cash flow and also to the monthly expenditures because CAL FIRE is not actually a monthly expenditure. It's a quarterly invoice. So I've revised it, and you'll see that later. I'm going to show you how I've changed my projections in a few minutes. We have legal fees of $12,000, balance public relations of $8,500, basically $108,000 a month. But when you take out the $20,000 for CAL FIRE, it brings it down to about $90,000 a month. In addition to that, we have, and this is the thing that kind of throws the monkey wrench into the whole pot, is that we have approved commitments for the emergency water supply project of $12,700,000. That's directly out of our budget, the approved budget for the year. And so far we've spent about $11 million out of that. Or we've committed 11, we haven't paid the whole thing yet. The 6-month cash flow projection that's in the board packet starts in September with the $944,000 that I projected we'd begin the month with. We get franchise fees every month. 1 month we get $10,000, next month $2,000. I'm not sure why it's set up like that, but that's just the way it works. We owe the county about $34,000 for dispatch fees for last year. We pay in a lump sum. They look at the year, figure out what their costs are, and then divvy it up amongst the various users. And our amount this year will be about $34,000. We have a bond payment of about $54,000. That's for the emergency water supply system. We had payroll, and then a wastewater bond of $136,000. And then I put in $75,000 for unforeseen maintenance and about $75,000 for other costs. So I was projecting an ending balance at the end of September of $120,000.
And Madam President, just really quick, and I don't mean to interrupt. That $75,000 you see in the maintenance and $75,000 is really a worst case scenario. That's a pretty aggressive budget for maintenance and others, assuming that we're not going to have a catastrophic failure of a lift station or something like that. So I just want the board, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, Patrick. I want you to that 75 and 75 for a 3-month duration of September, October, and November is pretty generous. So if after this presentation, the board directed us to come back and say, hey, Jerry, put 25 in there. We do have an older system and things like that, but that's a lot of money for maintenance and others. Thank you.
Yeah. Being a finance person, I tend to be a little conservative. I don't want to come in here and tell you we're going to have $1 million and then have to explain next month why we only have 400,000. Okay, but Jerry's right. Those are probably higher than they need to be. Basically, though, if you look at the rest of the projection through the end of February, we were looking at a $350,000, well, a $500,000 deficit at the end of November, and then a $350,000 deficit at the end of February. If you look in December, the payroll is $525,000. The reason for that is that we pay every other week, which is 26 pay periods in a year. So 2 months during the year we have 3 pay periods, and December happens to be the month that we have a 3rd pay period. So it's an additional $175,000. You've already seen the measures the staff has initiated to try to reduce our expenditures as much as possible, so I won't elaborate on them. Okay. What I've shown here is that a revised projection as of today. Instead of having 944,000 right now, it looks like we'll have a couple of 100,000 more at the end of the month than I had originally projected. We on the 19th, which was this morning, we had $1.7 million in actual cash. Our outstanding checks had been reduced to 200,000 because we have issued very few checks in the last couple of weeks, and a lot of the old checks have cleared. So it gives us $1.5 million in available cash today. For the rest of the month, I'm not projecting any more utility billing receipts. The due date was the 10th, and the majority of the receipts were received by the 10th, although we did, this Monday we received $25,000 from one customer who had 4 accounts. So it's possible we will receive some more utility billing receipts this month. Miscellaneous expenditures I've reduced to $60,000. So instead of $75,000 for maintenance and $75,000 for other, for the next 10 days we're looking at only $60,000. Pending invoices that we really need to pay is about $114,000. And recurring monthly expenses, some of them have been expended already, some of them have not. So that's down to $66,000 for the rest of the month. So basically the bottom line is now we're projecting $1.1 million instead of $944,000. It changes daily. I do this every day, and so it changes every day. Yesterday it was actually a little higher. Some checks came through, so it's a little lower today. But what I'm showing you is what I hope is a minimum amount that we would receive. What that does is that changes the 6-month forecast. So with the new starting numbers and all the other numbers still the same, it comes down to, in November now we're projecting a deficit of a little over 200,000, down substantially from a little over 500,000. And hopefully this will continue to get better. The general manager has been very aggressive in reducing our expenditures, and it's working. It's been very helpful. So that we're looking at the end of February now at less than $100,000 deficit. There's 2 things that aren't in here. They're on the footnote in the cash flow in the staff report. We do have another grant request in for $250,000, and it's very likely that we'll receive that grant within the next 30 days. So if we receive that $250,000 grant sometime in September, then the November deficit will basically go away. We'll be right at 0, but we won't be $250,000 in the hole, and that's my hope right now. And of course, then the February deficit would no longer be a deficit at all. It would be a positive cash situation. So that's my presentation. Is there any questions?
I do, just one, just for clarification. When you shared the update, which I appreciate very much, and talking about the projections now, are the projections based on the proposed reductions that the general manager made?
For the most part, yes. I'd have to look at each one of them to confirm that, but I think so, yes.
So they're in that projection. Okay, so that needs to stay in place.
Right.
And then the other question is, does that also reflect some of our vendors that have agreed to essentially to defer some of the payments that we owe them?
Yeah, that was the second footnote I forgot to talk about. There's about $1.1 million that we owe that we have not paid and that are not included in this cash flow projection. So bottom line, if they haven't agreed to delay payment, we may delay it without their concurrence.
Right, but
So
if
that
we
we
had to
don't-
make the payments today, that wouldn't be.
If we had to make that
something
$1
that's
million
possible.
in payments today, we'd be way in the hole.
It's not possible
That's
at this time.
correct.
Okay,
Madam-
I just wanted that
Madam
clarification.
President, I've been on the phone with, CDM Smith, and they're okay with, they're okay with it. So when we get our grant funding, which I'm optimistic we will, then we make the payments that we need to make to people, and what's encouraging is the money that we have outstanding versus the money that we'll receive will get us back up over $2 million in our reserves, which is encouraging.
Okay, that's my only question. Director Rice?
Thank you for your report. It's very clear and hopefully comprehensive. A couple of things on the maintenance and other. I know that we had ordered a specific, and this is probably a question for the general manager and perhaps the district engineer. We had ordered, and I think it had to be custom made for the wastewater treatment plant, some equipment that that was one of the things we kind of put on hold, and we definitely don't need another fine for problems with the wastewater treatment plant. So, I mean, maybe that's where I know that we don't have a lot of this extra $75,000 for the other and for the maintenance, but perhaps things that have been custom ordered or something.
Well,
I can respond.
I want to make sure that
Okay.
So we've reached out to that vendor. That vendor is also going to work with us and defer the payment till at least November and possibly beyond that. What you're referring to is the rag picker, and I guess I could have a better name for it, a bio screen or something. But
These names, these
so
names.
that's a custom fabricated piece of equipment. And Bob's done a great job on reaching out to them, and so there's a tremendous amount of cost associated and has been associated with not having that piece of equipment, especially on the impact it's having on our maintenance and the pumps and things like that. So the other expense associated with that would be to design and build a platform for it, which really isn't that much money. We're probably looking at $15,000 or $20,000, and then doing the installation. So it's still coming because that train had left the station. They started building that thing, and you're right. So it's still.
And it's on the cash flow. If you look, it says rag picker specifically.
Okay, and on the SR3 well treatment, I'm looking at on page 7, at the very bottom, the water report. Number 1 is the SR3 well and treatment facility contact time for surface water treatment engineering, and I know that it looks like we're still waiting for an approval. I also don't want to be delaying any potential sources of water we could be using, because that's for making it a potable water, right, for the SR3?
I think
Seems like
it's a requirement.
priority.
And while we're having this conversation, I think it'd be helpful for between now and whenever we have the next board meeting is look
Tomorrow.
I mean, our next board meeting after that is look at some of the things that you're addressing, some of the critical environmental things. One of the things that comes to mind is that and several other things. So maybe looking into that, and then since we are in such a tight cash flow, that we we sit down and prioritize
Well,
and decide what we're going to do. So
I can elaborate on that a little bit too. We have Filtronics included in here for $16,000. That's for SR3 to finish that project. And I talked to Justin yesterday, and there's about another $3,000 or $4,000 in expenditures that he needs to complete that totally. And so that's included in here also. So the SR3 should not be an issue. That's progressing. The completion.
Okay, and then the last question that I have, we're not having a problem with the Prop 84 grant because we still have outstanding payments to CDM Smith, are we? That's not part of the problem. Since
No,
the
ma'am.
grant is supposed to be going to pay them, I don't know the process of that whole.
no,
So I wanted to make sure that wasn't part of the problem.
No, and CDM has been most gracious, and I've reached out to them, had numerous conversations with them, and sent the board an email yesterday on it. No, that's not, but it would be my recommendation because of that, because it's money we owe them, that when we do get that money, we do pay them. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't part of the, I know that part of the concern at the county is being on the hook for the money, and we definitely don't want them, we don't want to be on the hook for the money, but we are, because we've got, we've got this plant that we need to get going, so.
Correct.
Director Barrender?
Yeah, I have, first of all, Patrick, I'm very glad you're here. I've been here for 5 years, and I've always thought that the LAIF balance was the LAIF balance, and that $1.5 million of outstanding checks, one would think that someone would present a LAIF balance that was really a true balance, not just what happens to be on the bank statement. So I appreciate that wholeheartedly. So thank you very much for that. And I just want to reiterate, we are going to be talking about a rate study, et cetera. And I believe you agree, and what I've learned over the last few years is that the water and wastewater has been supplemented by general funds for a long period of time. So you're looking at cash flow for the entire enterprise, but our objective is going to be to try and make sure that water and wastewater rates actually pay for the cost of providing the service. So,
Sure.
But thank you for your report.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Any other comments, Vice President Cliff?
I want to go back to the cash flow analysis and highlight what I'm hearing. And what I'm hearing is that if we get the 200,000 or so grant, I assume that's for SR3 and the SR3.
That's correct.
Yeah, and on November 15th, we're at $0.
Under the revised projection, that's correct.
We have no operating funds at that point in time.
Well, that's correct.
Okay.
If
And that's a best case scenario.
right. No, it's not a best case scenario. Hopefully that's a worst case scenario, because we're projecting more expenditures than I actually anticipate. Like Mr. Gruber said earlier, there's $75,000 a month for expenditures. Is pretty high, maintenance expenditures.
Okay, but it's not unreasonable to say we're out of money
No,
November 15th.
no.
Okay.
Right.
And in December, we're showing tax receipts of $1.2 million.
Right.
But I don't normally pay my taxes until December 10th, and I think most people probably don't. And so the county really doesn't forward that money to us till January.
No, we get it in December. We're on the teeter plan, so the county gives us an amount of money irregardless of what they collect. They give us everything, and all the delinquencies and stuff, they deal with that later. So all the interest and all that accrues to them. It's just an agreement between the district and the county, and they do in fact forward us taxes in December.
Okay.
That's a very nice agreement.
What my concern is, and I agree with all of the items that were listed as not filling the vacancies and postponing pay raises and charging full rates on the vets and deferring all these other things. But if we take the reality position of saying we either won't receive the Proposition 84 grant money or won't receive it within the next 3 months, because we have no control. We have no control over the timing of the of whether the 4.3 million total will be requested, and secondly, we have no control over the Department of Drinking Water actually paying it. And so it seems to me that we probably need more places to find money, because I think prudent financial management would say we have to plan for the next 3 to 4 months of getting through this without getting a dime from anybody else. And we can't go get a job, nighttime job at 7-Eleven or something like that to bring in extra money. And so it would be my recommendation to the board that we hold some kind of a special meeting very early in September with very specific items, and that the board make other recommendations, or we look at every, you know, you're already talking about stopping a whole lot of things like postponing work on East Park improvements. And that's $100,000 that we're at some time in the future. Where are we going to get that $100,000? And there's a lot of things here, and it just seems to me that we need to have a meeting that sets down and does the hard decisions. And it may be people who are going to lose their jobs or positions being removed because, you know, when zero is zero, where are we going to get the money to meet the next payroll? So my recommendation to the board is that these are wonderful and these are great, but we got to do more. We got to give the manager authority to do more if he has to do it, if we don't get the money.
Well, if I can
and that means all kinds of things. To me, that means suspending Section 8 of our bylaws, which is our compensation. All kinds of changing whether we're paying for TV stuff. Those things aren't big deals, but those two things right there pay some clerk's salary.
I agree. I think they add up, and I think with what the general manager's proposed here and doing, that as a board, we certainly should be doing what we can too. No question in my mind. Go.
I just
Director
wanted
Barnes.
to agree with Director Cliff that we should address this. You know, I don't think we can address all of this. We can approve what we see now, but early in September, yes, that's only a few weeks away.
Yeah.
We should have a meeting 2 weeks prior to our regular meeting so that we can address nothing but budget issues.
If the money comes, we can always change back. Mm-hmm. But if the money doesn't come and we continue on a aggressive but not as aggressive as we could policy, we place ourselves in some real problems. I don't have a problem asking CDM Smith to wait 3 or 4 months for their payment, but I do have a problem asking a clerk or a wastewater technician to wait for money.
I agree. I think we ought to come back that first part of September for this one topic. And I would also like, when we do get into more of the discussion on Prop 84 this afternoon, that we, as a part of that, find out, when we're discussing Proposition 84, find out, because I see Supervisor Gibson's here and will be involved with that too, that maybe we will be able to find out more, so when we resolve things, as we will, what kind of timeline can we expect then from, the state agency on receiving either Part C or Part D or both of Prop 84. So that would be something hopefully we would have a little more information on in September when we have that meeting. Okay, Director Thompson.
Just one question. Does your projection include the possibility of receiving the soft costs for the emergency water system?
No.
So,
It's not included in that cash flow.
And there seemed to be some optimism from what I've read that would be something that would be released post haste.
We're hopeful.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yes, Director Rice?
I just have a process question. Is that the extra meeting is something that we would need to be bringing up at future agenda items? Because I would be supportive of it. I just want to make sure that we're doing the process the way that it needs to be done. Or if the president approves of it, then we don't really need to have a special motion at the end of the meeting for the future agenda items. I just asking process question.
Are you talking about the meeting in September?
I'm talking about the meeting that Vice President Clift was just mentioning, yes.
Go ahead, David.
Well, certainly the president can call a special meeting.
Thank you. I just want to know. I just want to make sure that I understand the process.
It's a special meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Oh, yes, I'm
yes,
sorry.
Director Rice.
Yes, I'm actually not sorry. I have a question, though, as a matter of transparency, because a couple of folks have asked me. Have you requested that the PIO and our advocate defer their payments while we're in this monetary crisis?
I've met with our PIO, and we've reduced his considerably by about 66%. If that's something the board wants me to eliminate altogether, I think that it's important that we keep at least.
I'm not speaking to the value of either one. I'm just asking if we've asked them to defer their payment also, because both of those, that mean that's $11,000 a month.
Yeah. Yes on the first one, and not yet on the second one, but I'm really close. And I'm having lunch. The district's not paying for it, by the way. I'm having lunch. Hopefully the county will, if Bruce here, with them on Friday, and I'll approach Dean on that. But that's I understand. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. With no further questions for you, we thank you for the report. Good luck with tomorrow. Thank you very much. Okay. Do we have any further discussion or business on the general manager's report? Any areas? Director Rice?
Thank you, President Robinette. One of the things that it looks like maybe we could be cutting back is the facilities department. I'm looking at page 5 at the top, 2C. Thank you, by the way, for making this an outline, so it makes it much easier to refer to an item. So thank you, whoever was in charge of putting this together in a way that makes it easy to refer to an item. Thank you. I'm looking at number C under 2. Facilities Department has responded to complaints of homeless at public restrooms, vets halls, and skate parks. Page 5. Sorry, I thought I said that out loud. Maybe I just thought it. I just want to know, why is our facilities folks responding to these complaints? I mean, we've driven them out of the forest because of fire danger and because we don't want to have them on our property, but these folks live in our community, or they're passing through our community. We're not harassing them, I hope, and I hope that we're not taking the time of facilities and resources that you said is undermanned, essentially, to be taking care of things that either need to be reported to the sheriff or could maybe, a friendly whatever to the folks who are reporting it, as opposed to shooing people away from, like, say, a public restroom where somebody might need to use the bathroom.
Right. I think Carlos has I know Carlos has a very compassionate demeanor when he's dealing with folks that are having some difficult times and are homeless. And we've had multiple conversations about that. So I don't think Carlos is going in there and roughing them up. He has a really good demeanor. But as far as utilizing those resources to do that, I'll have a talk with him and make sure that the sheriff's department, because it's a loitering issue, the sheriff's department's contacted, and then they're addressing that.
And on page 8, Number 3, right at the top of the page. I believe this is under the water report. It says currently there is no surface water at SR3 wellhead, so we will be running the facility until surface water returns or permanently once the engineering documents have been accepted. I don't know if this is a brief explanation or something you need to explain in more detail to me offline, but I just kind of want to understand if that's correct or if there's an error in the sentence, because it doesn't seem to make sense to me, but I'm not a water person, so I just want to know what's going on with that.
I can respond to that up to a point, because Justin Smith, is our water supervisor, has been involved in the details, but from what I gather, there's a certain calculation that had to be completed on the contact time for the chlorine based on the upgrade of SR3, and so he's conservatively operating that until those calculations are pretty much accepted by Division of Drinking Water. And I know they've gone through several iterations, so it should be very, very close. And I believe it's related to that. The other point being that he's replacing the media in that filter right now, that I think you might have identified as one of the cost items, and so it's for that reason I don't think he wants to operate it if there's any surface water, because there's a rule that if you're within 150 feet of surface water, you have to disinfect and filter it and treat the water up to a certain level.
So the fact that there isn't surface water is why we're able to run it.
So when there's no surface water, it can be run in a more simple fashion. So that's related to it. And I'd also add, too, the filter media replacement cost is in part of that same grant that we got that's related at $248,000. So once we have that cost in hand, we'll make another request to get that reimbursed from that same grant source. It'll be a small amount, but I mean it helps. Every little bit helps. So
not having surface water, though, also means that we probably wouldn't be, even if it were all done and the filter was in and the Department of Drinking Water said go for it, there's nothing to pump for us to put into the system, to distribute into the system. Is that correct?
That's directly proportional to the WBE well,
Okay.
Windsor Bridge Each well.
And I know this is kind of in the weeds. I just want to understand kind of what that is going. I want to know because it's a water source that we theoretically, if it were done.
Yeah, that's. I sent Kathy the most recent well levels, and WBE is at 3.29. So, again, when that gets down to 3 feet, that's really the driving force to determine if we can run SR1 or SR3. SR3 and SR4, I'm sorry, we don't run SR1. So.
And this is kind of on a related note. It's not in the general manager's report, but is it true that the school is looking at putting in a golf course? Which then I was looking at, do we know what the irrigation well, if the irrigation well at the school affects our water or the WBE well? I don't know if they're in the same.
Bob, do you want to answer that question regarding the school's irrigation well and the reference to it may have a
Do we know?
Indirect impact on our SR4 well? What's our thoughts on that?
I don't know the details of the proposed golf facility, if it's going to be on the existing grounds or an expansion of the grounds. If it's on existing grounds, there'd be no net change in their irrigation demands. They do have a well at the high school that they use for outdoor irrigation. So assuming that whatever they do is within the confines of the existing irrigated turf area, then it shouldn't have a net increase on the extraction from the groundwater basin. If they're expanding and putting in some new irrigated area, then it could potentially have, an increase to what's being removed from the groundwater basin. We'd have to get back to you after we talk to the school, because I really haven't tracked that particular issue in any detail at this point in time. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion from the board then with the general manager's report? All right, we're going to move on to item 7, the ad hoc committee reports, and we have a request for public comment. So we'll begin with that. Bill, thank you very much. There's a little green light.
It's on. Okay.
Thank you.
Correct. President Robinette.
Monique.
directors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Bill Canoop. My wife and I have been full-time residents in Cambria for over 9 years. I am a retired fire chief, spent 25 years in the fire service. I ran a small department, just like this one here. I am like Chief Lewin. I started at the bottom. I was a fireman, engineer, captain, eventually fire marshal, and then fire chief. A lot of things have gone on here today that concern me, and one of them is not backfilling Captain Bitto's position. And I understand what the general manager said, and I understand what Chief Lewin said, but this is my take on it. First of all, the money's been budgeted. The money was budgeted at the beginning of the year, so the money's there. So that's not a question. The other thing is, you can promote somebody. They have a probation period, and that probation period is for you to evaluate them, so they can be doing the job. When you try to make an engineer do the jobs of a captain, it becomes extremely confusing, and I know that because I've done it. You can't mix the two. A captain has to be a captain. They can't be anything else. And like I said, you have the opportunity to, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. A couple more quick things. I know I'm running out of time. I understand the ad hoc committee is going to look at all aspects and listen to the community, and I hope they really do. We, a number of us concerned citizens, have gotten together. We've created what we think is a fair and equitable website to address these concerns and to give you information. And anybody that has questions on it, they're more than willing to send them in. We'll be happy to answer them. We have tried to be as objective as possible. I don't have a fight in this. I don't have a dog in this fight. This is not my concern except for the citizens of Cambria and their public safety. And I don't believe, and as Chief Putney has said in the past, CAL FIRE is a great organization, but you lose a lot when you lose local control. And I know that. I'm well aware of it. So I would appreciate it if everybody would take a look at keepcambriafirelocal.com and just read it. Understand that we're here to help. And if anybody has any questions, if the directors have any questions, I'd be more than happy to help them, answer them now or in the future.
Thank you very much. Okay, now reports from ad hoc committees, and Director
I guess
Beringer?
I'll address a little bit about Director Rice and myself did have a quick ad hoc, actually a couple of quick ad hoc meetings with once with the finance manager and together, and we're trying to schedule something similar to exactly what the fire ad hoc committee is going to do, have some public comment and outreach. Probably won't happen until early September, the first one. We're going to try and get a few citizens together to make sure we have the first cut. And we're going to be addressing this issue more when we're talking about the contract. So I can elaborate and give my opinions on that at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask,
Question?
Is there an expected time for a rate
yes,
before the public?
As far as we were hoping to actually have a public meeting prior to the end of this month, but it would almost conflict with yours. You're going to have two meetings, one at the end of August and one at the beginning of September. So probably right at the beginning of September.
My question is there a projected date when you would have a completed rate that would be open so that the public can make their comments, or
the projected date for
the start of the 218? Let's put it that way.
The start of the 218 should be near the end of the month of September.
Okay. It's in the agenda item in the details when we get to that one.
And the overall objective is to have, when water is delivered starting January 1st, it's subject to the new rate. That's kind of the general timeline.
Okay. Other ad hoc reports?
The ad hoc committee on fire, we have the two meetings scheduled here in the Vets Hall. One is August 31st at 1 p.m., and the other one is September, I have to look at my notes, September 3rd at 6 p.m. We're committed to just an open meeting, which is a listening meeting, a meeting to take information. Our intent and purpose is to take that information, add other information that we acquire from staff, and go to some kind of a questionnaire to our, when we maybe mail out a billing, so that we get a broad perspective of people within the community. So we want input, and we want input that is both individual and what people might want from the standpoint of asking other people to contribute to or to follow up on. So those will be kind of free. Those will be free-flowing meetings, as far as I understand. I don't think we'll have a 3-minute clock going or anything like that. It'll be an open discussion type of a meeting, and our position is that we're there to listen and take notes and take down information. I also can say, from the standpoint of the Budget Committee, we've had daily daily Budget Committee meetings, and most of it you've seen here today. So I can pass on that.
Okay, and I don't have anything to add to that.
You can add to it.
Yeah, no, I think we've been very involved lately, and everyone sees what we've been working on by now. Okay, Director Rice?
Thank you, President Robert. You did say the second one is September 3rd at 6 p.m.?
September 3rd
at 6 p.m. Thank you. I just want to make sure I have the right date down. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're blocking out 6 to 2 hour, at least a 2 hour period.
Okay, no further ad hoc committee meetings, related meetings. What I would like to do then is let's move to the consent agenda, and then we're going to take a break. And then I also see that Supervisor Gibson is here, and so I am wondering about the feasibility of moving item C right after the break to the first. I would like to do that for him. All right. So consent agenda.
I'm sorry, Madam President, before we go on to consent, I just want to report the Conservation Committee did meet, but it's on the item that's on tomorrow's agenda, so we don't need to make a report right now. We're going to cover it tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't left off.
Thank you. Okay, then let's see. We are now on item 8, and I see no request for public comment. Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I like that. Second. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute recess, and then we'll come back and we'll start actually with item C. There are no appeals today on item 9, so we'll start on 10C.
Of authorization for the general manager to execute an indemnity agreement with the county of San Luis Obispo County, or provide the county with other assurances relating to Proposition 84 grant funding as necessary. The recommendation is recommended that the board authorize myself to execute the above agreement, and this was based on dialogue that we've had with the county, and just a brief discussion on this. As discussed in detail in the general manager's report, San Luis Obispo County has concerns relating to the county flood control water and water conservation district agreement with the California Department of Water Resources regarding the $4.3 million grant that the CCSD has been awarded under Proposition 84. Staff has been working diligently with the county to seek a resolution of their concerns. Discussions have included, on a conceptual basis, a guaranteed or assurances to the county that, in the event the DWR were to require repayment of the grant funds, the CCSD would assume the obligation or indemnify the county. The form such agreement or assurance would take has not yet been established. It may be an indemnification agreement or another assurance that the county will accept. As explained in the general manager's report, the delay in funding is severely impacting the CCSD's cash flow. In order to avoid any delays, this item has been added to today's agenda to seek the board's authorization so that the general manager is in the position to immediately execute an indemnity agreement with San Luis Obispo County or provide the county with assurances relating to Proposition 84 grant funding as necessary. Any agreement or other assurances will have to be brought in a form acceptable to the district council and the CCSD board. So as you discuss this indemnification agreement, it's not that you're giving me carte blanche. It's asking me to enter in to discussions with the county alongside will be our district council and their county council and their chief administrative officer. So whatever agreement is reached, or at least a framework for that agreement would come back to the CCSD board for final approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a request for public comment on item 10C. Elizabeth Bettenhausen.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'm Elizabeth Bettenhausen from Cambria, and I listened carefully to what the general manager just said. I hope in the motion to pass this, whoever makes it, they will include explicitly that this does not give the general manager the authority to enter into any agreement with the county. It gives the general manager the authority to work out with the county and the legal counsel an agreement which would then come back to you, the board of directors, for the action. Too frequently in the past 2 years, you have assigned authority to the general manager, which, as you well know, has bothered some of us because you have sacrificed oversight. And so I'm very glad to hear him say that this would not be an agreement that he would enter into. It's an agreement that would be formulated that comes back to you for your action. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And we also do have Supervisor Gibson here if we want to ask questions, I think, of anyone. But are we ready for discussion? Do we have discussion?
I will make a motion that we authorize the general manager to execute an indemnify agreement with San Luis Obispo County or provide the county with other assurances relating to Prop 84 grant funding as necessary. But I'll discuss after if I get a second.
Do you want the word execute in there? Or to negotiate?
I think negotiate. Well, no, I think other than public comment, I think he should be able to execute. Yes, I believe that. Yes.
Carried out.
And is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. All right. Good.
Now, you sure you want the word
right?
execute?
And so let's.
Okay. So to be clear,
for review.
No, I don't think that. I think that from my understanding of what's been going on, in fact, I would like him to do, as part of discussion, only as necessary. I think that the county and DWR and our general manager and our legal counsel will be able to work something out. I think this is to protect him in the event over the next, they want or need an indemnification that we're authorizing him to do so. And this is much different than the fire issue that we're talking about, indemnifying the county. There was a big hang-up that we've had. Indemnifying the county for giving us a permit if they get sued. Well, you know, they should.
Your time is not up. Keep going.
That seems silly for me. On the other hand, we're the benefactor, and so we're the recipient of the funds. We should be able to take the risk, and so that's why I'm comfortable with this. I hope that they can work it out so that no one has any risk or realizes there isn't any risk, and the monies flow quickly.
And I actually agree with you. I just wanted to make sure that the intent is to give the general manager the authority to execute the agreement. And I think one of the factors is that their time is of such essence here, right, that I have seen all the emails and everything that's gone back and forth and everything. I have confidence in our general manager and our legal staff to work something out.
And as a little bit of additional discussion, as a basic principle, I think that the legal counsel, both at the county and here at our dais, should be advising us as to what level of risk we should take or not take. But all too often, legal counsel seems to develop policy, whereas a board should be doing the policy and making the decisions. So it's just no offense against legal counsel, but even at the county level, I believe that the board could gratefully take the advice of legal counsel, but share some risk if need be. But nonetheless, my motion stands.
For clarification, then, this motion that's been seconded, we are then wanting to give the, I suppose, the support, the green light, the direction to both the general manager and to the county to find, with their legal counsel, an agreeable resolution to this issue, and time is a bit of the essence. And so we are saying we don't necessarily need to have it come back? Correct?
I don't think we need to.
Okay, because there is a very, time is very important on this one.
And it's very narrow. All these, the dollar amount, the timing, the agreements between DWR, all of our other requirements that we may or may not need to accomplish to make this happen, really can be done. And we're not expanding Mr. Gruber's authority in any way beyond having an acceptable form with our district council to mitigate any mitigate any risk to the county on this particular matter.
Yes, and I thank you, because I do believe between Supervisor Gibson and General Manager Gruber, they are both with the right intention and working really hard on it. And so I'm pleased to hear that. Further discussion? Director Rice?
Thank you, President Robinette. Well, here's where I'm coming from, kind of the opposite position of that, which is that the board we were elected to provide oversight, and fiscal oversight is one of the more important ones. And we're looking at a large amount of money and that this community would then be responsible for if for some reason it had to be paid back to the state. And not that this should be taken as no reflection on my level of confidence in the general manager and the county to come to an agreement that is okay with legal counsel. It is that this is a potential burden on our community that voted us in office to have this fiscal oversight. I think if time is of the essence, we have a special meeting. We have required, I kind of asked for the similar thing to happen with the tree permit. Then that was, that has to come back to the board. let's have this come back to the board. This is about way more than reducing the fire risk in the community. And I for one, I'm not comfortable passing this particular responsibility. We can have a special meeting. It wouldn't take very long. I think it's more important that the community understands that the board knows what kind of potential risk there is in taking this grant, which is potentially, which I can't even imagine how it would be possible since the terms of the agreement for the grant repaying it doesn't seem like it would even be possible. But that's neither here nor there. I don't think that one person should be making that decision. I think that that's a decision that places a burden of risk on the community that this board should be making. Not that I don't have confidence in the general manager and our council. That's not what it is for me. This is about the board standing up and taking the responsibility for which we were elected.
Director Thompson?
I disagree. I think it's only reasonable that we assume the responsibility. We accepted the grant. We built the plant. We have it in place. We should not accept or expect that the county would then be responsible for repaying any possible charges against us. And so I think it's fully our responsibility to indemnify the county. And I think the actual document is such that that the attorneys can work it out, and I don't feel a need to see it because it's going to be very, very specific and very lawyerese, and I'm comfortable that we can.
If I may just respond with clarification, I didn't mean that I don't support having the county be indemnified. I think that the agreement should be executed by the board and not by the general manager, is what I'm saying.
I think we're giving permission to do that, aren't we?
Yeah, my only concern with that is that you're in effect asking the staff to work with their staff to negotiate whatever it is that needs to be to indemnify the county. We're on the hook for the $4.3 million, whether it's lost employees or what. We need the $4.3 million. So we're going to get it by either having employees lose their job, or we indemnify the county so that they feel comfortable enough to forward the paperwork. I don't blame them. Their attorneys are doing exactly what I would expect our attorneys to do for us.
Absolutely.
And so we're on the hook for the $4.3 million one way or the other. And it seems to me indemnifying the county, getting the money, getting the process through, and getting the rates and other things along the way, I don't see it going to a big problem. And if it is, we're still on the hook for the $4.3 million anyhow.
Well, I don't disagree with indemnifying the county. I want to make that clear. I think it's perfectly fine. I would have made the motion that the general manager should negotiate an agreement and then the board should approve it. Because I think it's.
But that brings it back here, and that basically starts us looking through it and trying to renegotiate it if there's some little technicality that I don't like or Jim doesn't like or somebody else doesn't like. Let's just get it done.
And when you negotiate something, it's difficult to negotiate with somebody that doesn't have final authority. You're negotiating with kind of like a paper tiger. It's almost like coming to an agreement with Iran or something. You've got to. The people at the negotiating table should be able to have the final say when they reach an agreement.
They have to be able to reach across the table
and by saying, okay, Jerry would say, well, I got to get my board to approve it. It looks good to me, you know, that kind of thing. I don't see. Anyway, that's just discussion.
I think having it come back as a consent item or something. I mean, I would assume that the board of supervisors would have to approve the agreement. Yes? It wouldn't just be to the staff of the county to have that authority. I mean, maybe I'm incorrect in that assumption, but it seems to me.
We could ask the
this
supervisor if he thinks that
I'm
that's
just
an
trying
item
to
that
make
he'd have
sure
to approve.
that we're not shirking a responsibility we should be taking on, which is to have approval over agreements that are made with other agencies. That's all.
I think both are advised by county council and legal counsel here too, and I think.
And why can't we do the tree permit that way?
I'm not talking about the tree permit.
It's entirely different. Entirely different. We're the benefactor in this case.
Yeah.
We are the benefactor. We're getting the, and they shouldn't want.
I would like to be clearly on the record that I'm not against indemnifying the
Right.
county.
Right.
But I think this is a process within our board.
We have
that
heard
need to
you.
look at.
Right. And on the other hand,
And that's why I would vote no.
on the other hand, the county shouldn't have to be indemnified for issuing a permit either. That's a different issue, entirely different, because they're the benefactor, not us.
Okay, so we have any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. And would you read the motion back, please, Monique?
Yes. Director Berenger moved to authorize the general manager to execute an indemnity agreement with San Luis Obispo County or provide the county with other assurances relating to Proposition 84 grant funding as necessary. Was seconded by Vice President Cliff.
Okay. Let's have a roll call vote.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Cliff?
Aye.
Director Thompson?
Aye.
Director Rice?
No.
President Robinette?
Aye. Motion passes 4 to 5, 4 to 0. Excuse me, 4 to 1. Okay, a total of 5. Okay, let's move now then to item A. And General Manager, if you would introduce item A under item 10.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 10A is discussion and consideration to concur with the General Manager's recommendation to suspend waivers for the Veterans Hall use fees for the community groups and civic organizations. The fiscal impact, the user fee schedule is based upon the CCSD's cost to provide a variety of services and facilities and is designed to allow the district to recoup its cost. The user fee schedule for the district services and facility was last updated on August 23, 2012. Staff worked with Alex Handler of Bartle & Wells to prepare a comprehensive update of the CCSD's fees and charges in order to establish fees that reflect the district costs for providing services. A copy of that is attached to your staff report today. Since little or no fees were allocated from community groups, civic organizations, or veterans organizations prior to August 12th, adoption of the user fee schedule, a recommended $100 voluntary donation has been requested to cover the minimal cost of utilities. Since that time, very few community groups and civic organizations have paid anything for the usage of the Veterans Hall. As outlined as part of my General Manager's report and the Finance Manager's report, the district is currently facing significant cash shortfalls due to the land watch litigation and delays in receiving the district's $4.3 million as part of the Proposition 84 funding from the county. Due to these shortfalls, staff has recommended that the Board of Directors concur with the General Manager suspending, at least on an interim basis, reductions and fee waivers of fees for community groups and civic organizations and charge the applicable fees to be set forth in the CCSD's user fee schedule. Since the Facilities and Resources Department is now down one-time employee, the additional revenue will help to partially fund contract services that are related to community groups and civic organization events for an ongoing upkeep of the facilities. Since the Veterans Memorial Hall is designated as such, staff recommends that fees for any and all functions relating to veterans continue to be waived. I think the board got a letter from Joe Ellen, the Executive Director of FFRP. Just my thoughts on this, because I know that it is a community facility. Over the last many years, we've worked with those community groups and have allowed for reductions or even complete waivers of those fees. And my thought along these lines would just be to ask them during these difficult times and these challenging times to support helping the CCSD out. So that's just the staff report, and if I can answer any questions, I'd be more than happy to. And Patrick's here also. Patrick's still hanging around. So I didn't do any projections on what we might anticipate the revenue being or what we've lost in revenue, but we pretty much waive everything, and that was the discretion that you gave me. We've as I indicated in the staff report, we've asked for We've asked for donations, but very seldom, if I can only count a handful of them that have given those. So thank you.
Thank you. We have no request for public comment on this item, so we can move then to board discussion. Director
Beringer. Yeah, what I'd like to do is as part of the discussion, I'm looking at the Memorial Hall rentals chart here, and the fees are quite minimal. And in every case, a community or group or civic organization doesn't really, they pay a couple of hourly fees, but if they use the full facility, there's no charge. So I think we've taken very good care of our community groups and civic organizations, and we hope they're all 501c3 oriented. In other words, the groups themselves should be bona fide groups, not a local jazzercise Inc. They should be a real community and civic organization. And the fees that we're going to get are probably quite minimal. If we keep the same Exhibit A on the bottom, it says that the general community groups and civic organizations and veterans organizations may receive a fee reduction as determined by the general manager. Now, that's the good news and the bad news. The good news is that the general manager can waive those fees. The bad news is the general manager looks like a goofus if he waives a fee for one person and not waives it for another. And I think for sure that we should collect at least the cost of what it is for someone to use the facility in any case, even if this needs to be modified a little bit. There should always be a fee for, if they're going to use the full facility. $250 shouldn't keep Viva Las Vegas from being, I'm sure they can cough up the $250. And if the general guidance to the general manager is to use his discretion, but his discretion should be very limited on providing waivers, and the community is on the notice more, so to speak, that waivers are going to come few and far between. Then we have time by next summer to address whether the particular request by Joellen Butler, the executive director of FFRP, when they have an educational event here, maybe wildflower show. That's almost a year away, so we can address that particular issue. So with that said, I think all we're doing with this is saying, hey, look, we're tight on our budget. The general manager is going to be a tougher guy to deal with, and if the fees seem excessive for their use, the general manager will still have that authority. So that's my kind of guidance. I would almost move that we recommend to suspend waivers of Veteran Hall use fees for community groups and civic organizations while we are in financial duress. And we will readdress it March of 2016. That'd be my motion.
That's a long motion. Further, is that now in the form of a motion? No.
I'll withdraw that. But
okay, we'll continue discussion then. So there's no motion for a second at this time.
Well, I think both Director Barring, now you got me saying that.
It's
Director Beringer.
It's
I know
Beringer.
I didn't start to say Barringer until you started saying that.
Beringer.
I think Director Beringer and I were both on the review committee, and I think we're both really pleased with how the rates came out, and we did take into consideration the needs of the community groups and so forth. I think that's reflected in the rate request. Having said that, I'm kind of betwixt and between, because I think that it's important that we do recover some costs from everybody that uses the hall. Mm-hmm. If nothing for the cost of the toilet paper, the cost of resurfacing the floor, and those types of things. And so I think everybody that rents this should provide a charge. And just one question with respect to the recent memorials here. Were all the costs recently waived, or completely?
Yes.
Okay. And so basically, again, my thought there would be that irrespective of the good purpose for the use of the hall, there should be some recovery of costs to cover those incidentals that do occur, and that the the community should not be expected to incur the entire cost of the incidentals. And so I think the motion is fine. I think that we should still allow the general manager to use some discretion, but give him the sense that that we do expect that there will be some cost recovery from whoever rents the hall to cover those items. And with that, I'd be satisfied with moving forward with the recommendation.
Is there a second?
Well, oh, was that a motion?
You made a motion, didn't you?
No.
What was the I move?
No, we're still discussing.
Okay, all right, more discussion. Director Rice?
Thank you, President Robinette. Couple of questions. We're doing this because of the little money we have. I mean, if we're going to zero November 15th, I don't think $20 an hour from a nonprofit is going to save us from that eventuality. But not having the numbers in here and knowing how many of the 34 events last month were waived, it's hard for me to even know what kind of fiscal impact this may actually have. And maybe Patrick has kind of a ballpark in his head about it or not. I don't know. Question on the two questions, and then I'm finished. One is on the security cleaning deposit. Do you return the full amount usually? And if there's damage, you keep some, or how does that usually work?
Correct. And historically, people have been really good about clean up after
because
themselves.
Of the deposit,
I think there's been a few instances where they've had to retain that and hold on to that amount. I think maybe for damages, I don't know of any of the damages, but the cleaning deposit, Carlos has indicated to me on a few different occasions they've withheld that because they haven't cleaned it to the standard in which they found it. So.
And the other question is, would this apply to events that have already been scheduled onto the calendar, because it may affect, especially for a nonprofit or a small group, it may affect their ability to even, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, $20 an hour for a class 1, but if you've got a 4-hour event, it could be the difference between being able to do it or not.
If we have a signed contract, we'll honor that, but any future events that are on the calendar.
So people who are already scheduled wouldn't apply to.
No,
if
it
you've
would
already
apply.
Given them a
There's a
waiver.
difference between being scheduled and having a signed, agreed upon contract. So
I see.
We schedule because there's such a high demand for this facility. We schedule quite far out in advance, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have signed contracts. So I think contractually, and I'd defer to David on this, if we have signed contracts, we would honor that, because essentially what we're saying is the terms and conditions and the price associated with that we agree upon. So that would be problematic. But as far as things that are scheduled out, my recommendation would be we would charge those fees for those events.
Let's just make sure we let those folks know that that's going to happen when you call them to do the agreement or whatever.
Right. And we have generated a letter we didn't include in the board package, but we don't want to arbitrarily just say, hey, this is the way it's going to be from now on without giving a reason. And Patrick and I drafted a letter letting them know the financial limitations of the district. And so when they apply or inquire about, we'll provide that letter to them. We have it electronically, and that'll help them explain why we've decided to charge all of a sudden. And then that also shifts the that they're part of the solution now, and that helps them understand that there are some financial challenges. And my gut feeling is that the overwhelming majority of people that want to use this facility will be receptive of that, especially since some of the board members have indicated it's really not that much money in the first place. So.
Vice President Cliff?
I think we ought to go forward with it. We can always change it, and we could always ask the staff or a committee to review the charges so that if you want to reduce some of the charges to be just a recovery charge. But I think we really ought to suspend the waivers And I would support suspending waivers.
I would like to share too. I'm wondering if I've always liked data, and I would just like to see like the monthly reports that we know how many events we've had. We usually have that in the report from Carlos, but I would like to see how much does that actually equate to, how much money is brought in. I would like to know that. I know the first time that we put this together, it took really quite a few meetings to finally come out with this. And so whatever we do, I would just also like for it to be whatever we set. I'd like to see some data first. I would almost then like to see, okay, what would at least be reasonable to cover at least minimal cost for nonprofit. And then if we feel that we later want to change that, we could always say it's temporary, depending on our fiscal position. The nonprofits could be adjusted again. That's just my thought. And Director Behringer.
I move that we table this item, but give the general manager the direction that he should take much greater care in waiving fees for community groups until our fiscal house is in order. He's got this. He's got this. He can waive or not waive. If we give him direction not to waive, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to make any kind of. It doesn't have to be an agenda item even. I say we table it because he's got full authority to not waive, and if he doesn't waive, he just collects the fees that are supposed to be.
And General Manager Gruber, how do you feel about that?
What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Gruber?
I won't be waiving the fees. I mean, this is serious stuff. I mean, we waive it or we don't waive it.
Except for veterans groups.
Except for veterans. I mean, I just think the way I look at it, I'm probably there's probably all these people right now that are going to watch this and say, "What a cold-hearted SOB." But we've been there for civic groups forever, and we've allowed them to use the facility for nothing. We need your help. Yeah. These are some serious financial times right now, and we need your help. And as indicated by some of the board members, that we could revisit this at a later time. The way it's written right now, I have the authority to go ahead and charge, and unless I'm directed otherwise by the board, I'm going to do that. And I know that seems harsh, but it's the reality. I much rather tell a civic group that I'm going to charge you than look at an employee and say I have to lay you off. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with this.
Now, I will second it. And I also, you could get a lot of data, but one of the data that you might not think about is that having a charge might reduce some of the usage, which reduces some of the expenses. So make sure you take that into account too, because if I can get it for free, I'm going to do everything here. Whereas if I have to pay something, I'll have to make a decision as to here or someplace else. Mm-hmm. So I'm not, and every time it's used, it means an employee of ours has to do certain things, and so it's a cost factor. Anyhow, I'll second it.
What'd you second? Second the table.
I'll second his motion.
Let's hear it again.
I say we table the motion and direct the general manager to be very prudent on any waivers he gives.
All right.
That's it. It's just
there's a second discussion.
First and second, I support the notion of just giving him the sense of going forward with charging fees, but I would say also to show a bit of compassion in cases where there needs to be.
Okay.
Let me go on the record to say I will definitely do that, Michael. Director Thompson. You know I will, and I think I know specifically what you're referring to. There are some memorials here. There are people raising money for cancer victims and things like that, and I will show compassion. I promise. Because I would want compassion showed on me, so obviously, yeah. So I'm okay with that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Director Rice?
I just wanted to know if I'm glad to hear that you're going to have compassion for those that where it really does make more sense to not make the charge, and I think that it's a smart way to go, to direct the general manager to do what's already in the rules. If somebody doesn't like that decision, does that mean they could appeal it to the board? I mean, it seems like such a piddly amount to be bothering with coming to the board, but I just want to make sure that they have a remedy if they don't like the answer that they get, if necessary. I don't know if it's necessary, but
I think this is such a wonderful community, and as people watch this right now, I think it's going to be almost a moot point. I think people are going to step up, and I really think we see it at all levels within this community, and I think people are going to step up and say, I don't even want to fight over $100 or $200. I'm going to go ahead and pay it, because they know we're in a situation, and they're going to hear to help us. That's what this community is all about. So.
And yes, I agree. Vice President Cliff?
And I think it's important to pass the motion so that the public knows the board supports the decisions that they're going to make. Because otherwise, every time he doesn't waive it, there will be a request to appear here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you want to do that, that's fine. But
what's your suggestion, that we just?
No. I believe we should pass your motion so that the public knows that we're supporting his being very strict on it.
Okay, so.
Okay, and we have.
Monique, do you have any kind of an idea what that motion was?
Director Thompson?
And just an addendum to compassion. Even in those cases where you are showing compassion, Mr. Gruber, I think that there should be some cost recovery fee attached to that for incidentals. I don't think there should be 100% waiver.
I agree. Thank you very much on that.
Okay, let's read the motion back now.
Director Berenger moved to table the item and direct the general manager to be prudent in granting waivers he approves.
And the second.
And Director Cliff.
Okay. Any further discussion on the item? Okay. Roll call.
Director Berenger?
Yes.
Vice President Cliff?
Yes.
Director Thompson?
Aye.
Director Rice? Aye. President Robinette?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, now on to 10B. And so General Manager Gruber, if you would introduce that, please.
Thank you, President Robinette and board members. Item 10B is discussion and improve Bartlewell's proposal for water and wastewater financial plans and rate study, and authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement. I'd like to thank the rate implementation study ad hoc committee meeting or group. We had a conference call with Alex Handler. We spent about an hour and a half on the phone with him. I do apologize. In a perfect world, I wish the ad hoc committee would have had the opportunity to at least review this and comment on the proposal prior to me bringing it to you. That did not occur. We got it kind of on the 11th hour. That really was the plan. That was the direction I got from the ad hoc committee, and so I think when this was distributed on Thursday, it's probably the first that you saw of it. Since then, Alex Handler has asked us, even prior to you approving this, he sent us a big, long laundry list of things that needed to be done. Patrick has completed that list and has sent him everything that he's asked for. I think there are some other things such as CIP lists and things like that still need to be included. We're looking at the fiscal impact of $41,500. We did budget $22,000 the rate study for the water department, and then $20,000 for the wastewater department. So both the departments are kind of paying for it half. We also have a timeline in here. We've worked with Alex Handler before. There is a little background about his experience. It's broken down into 3 areas. It's a firm and the project team qualifications, tell you a little bit about themselves. Proposed scope of work and services, task order A, B, C, and D. Section 3 is the draft project schedule, which is found on page 8. And one of the questions that was asked earlier regarding this study is what is our timeline looking like? And it is a very aggressive timeline. If you looked on page 8, the kickoff meeting already occurred. September, ad hoc committee staff meetings to discuss findings, present key water and sewer rate alternatives, and gain input. September 24th would be potential board meeting, discuss findings and preliminary recommendations on alternative and gain input. October 22nd would be a board meeting, and we'd have a community workshop and gain input to finalize the proposed rates for inclusion in the Proposition 218 rate notice. October 30th, we're looking at mail the Proposition 218 rate notices. December 17th, Proposition 218 rate hearing. And then January 1st of 2016, if the Proposition 218 is successful, it would result in new rates becoming effective on bills sent out on or after this date, pending input from legal counsel. One other thing I wanted to go over with you is Section 4, the availability and fees, and then the attachments 12. Project team resumes and list of preliminary information needed. Alex has done some work for us before. One of the questions was, well, he's done so much of this work before. Why this amount? Why? There's still a great deal that needs to be done. There's still a lot of work that needs to be evaluated. I could go back to him and say, is this the best you could do? But we think this is a fair price, and we have a lot of work to do at the ad hoc committee level, and I really want to thank Director Berenger and Director Rice. They got their work cut out for them. We'll probably have one or two, possibly even more. He only indicates one workshop in here. I think we should have at least probably 2 evening meetings. He's receptive to that. But our goal of these rates will be to resolve some of the financial shortfalls that Director Berenger indicated before about taking money from the general fund to offset and balance the budgets within the water and wastewater departments. So it's going to require a lot of work on staff's part, but thank goodness we got Patrick and everybody else. And we're taking more of a team approach to it, too. We really need to have input from the administrative staff. We really need to have input from the wastewater department, not necessarily be a part of all the meetings, but we need to get information from them about what they feel are priorities. If we do this in a vacuum, if Bob and I say, okay, we think you need this, without involving Justin or Orlando, then I think we're not going to have the best possible product that we could. So with that being said, I'll answer any questions. But again, Director Berenger and Director Rice, they've already jumped into it. A lot of good insight. And if there's anything within the scope of work that you want to add, my suggestion would be to accept it as is with the following changes. And I can bring that back to Alex if there's anything that you don't feel comfortable with in here. But it's like many other things. We are fast tracking this. We get things done. We like to move forward. But I also want the entire board, and especially the ad hoc committee, to feel comfortable with what we're bringing you today. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a request for public comment on item 10B. Tina Dickinson.
Tina Dickinson, Cambria. Good afternoon, Board. On the rate increase, I have a question. I was watching much of the meeting at home live streaming, and I heard the district manager's concerns regarding the Prop 84 funding, the 4.3. You seem to be quite pessimistic in regard to the funding actually coming through. I don't happen to feel that way, but we'll see what happens. If the funding does come through, then how will that affect rate increases as you are now preparing? It sounds like you're sort of thinking the money won't be there from the Prop 84, from what I heard. So how will that then, if you do indeed get the funding, how will that affect the thinking going forward with rate increases. That's a concern. Also, maybe I just missed this, but what about community input? There will be meetings, I gather, for the community to, of course, to be included in whatever proposals are made and then to comment. But I would like to get an answer, if we do get the $4.3 million, how might that affect the thinking with the rate increases? We've already pretty much made an agreement with Bartle and Wells, but what about the ad hoc committee that have been working on this? Have you considered that element? And if so, how would you go about relating to the community if that 4.3 comes in? Then how would rates be looked at? Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, may I just
General Manager Gruber?
I'm not pessimistic regarding. I'm not pessimistic regarding the Proposition 8. I'm guarded, but I'm actually very optimistic, as I indicated. And then with regard to Ms. Dickinson's comment about community input, as I indicated during the timeline, it does show a meeting. My recommendation within the scope of work is that we try to get as much community input as possible. The third point that she mentions regarding receiving of that $4.3 million on this new rate structure, I would defer to Patrick on that. But I think, and maybe the ad hoc committee, I think we're talking two different items here, two completely different items. So I hope I answered their questions.
Thank you. Director
Beringer. Yeah. Thank you. Ms. Robinet, which is actually the way she likes it, Robinet, right?
Robinet.
Robinet. Yeah.
Yes. Let's not start that.
Okay. A couple of things. And Mr. Gruber, yes, I did get this in my packet and was quite surprised in a way. But because I was reading through it and there were some issues I have with it, so I don't mind airing them publicly. But before I get into that, overall, the ad hoc committee recognizes that we need a new sewer plant. And we have some large capital projects. But we took those capital projects away from this particular study. And this particular study, the intent of the directions that we've given to Mr. Handler has been to, if we're going to do a sewer plant, we have potential grants, it's going to be a large project, we have retiring debt that we might be able to take into consideration. So that would be something we would put on for a voter approval for maybe a bond or something like that, a combination of bond and so on and so forth. So this is just a rate study. How it relates to the $4.3 million really is irrelevant. I think the objective of the original approach when Alex Handler had this about 18 months ago was to make sure that the water and sewer rates were enough to pay for the cost of delivery, the water and sewer. So that's the approach we're focusing on. I'm a little bit chagrined, and I will support this as is. However, I was surprised that it would take anywhere near 200 hours at $200 an hour. It just seems extensive, and I think that Mr. Handler may be overemphasizing some of the things that need to be done. And one of the things is when we were talking about a rate increase in the past, Mr. Handler had a rate increase to stabilize the water and sewer rates, and another one if we were to do an advanced water project. We decided to take the advanced water project and move forward with it. He had in his hand right there exactly what the rates were supposed to be. Yes, he needs to update it, but we, in discussion, had already said, when he showed the slides, would you want it to be tiered rates or do you want it not to be tiered rates? Do you want it to be come in all at once or not? Do you want to have a rate increase escalator? So I think that I don't want to see that rehashed again. We almost have to go back to the videos or something, but we had as a group decided on the way we wanted to start charging from unit 1, for instance. So he doesn't have to come back to us and say, do you want to start? Do you want to have the first tier at 4 units or 3 units? No, we want to start charging unit 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've made a lot of decisions. So I want to reduce the scope of his work to those decisions we've already made, come up with a number, and move forward. So I hope we can convince him of the ease to that. Now, I'm underestimating, and yes, he has a whole staff of people, but I believe if he dusted off the rate study that he had before and bring it kind of to the current level. In fact, we told him to give us what his capital improvement projects were, and we can review that and see if they're still on or are those capital improvements projects something that we could put on a bond. So I think there's a lot more ad hoc work to be done rather than going on and on and on this stuff. I tend to think that one public meeting, if he has an answer, he isn't going to ask the community a bunch of different things because he's already done that. He had a couple of public meetings. We had the whole board took all that input into place, and so if he gives one answer, presents it to the public also has another opportunity at our board meeting to be able to provide input to that particular project, and that's the way I was hoping to fast track this whole project. So that's just my comment. And maybe my other ad hoc committee member will also weigh in.
Director Rice? Yes, I tend to agree with Director Behringer on those specific issues about the amount of work that's already been done. I think it would be helpful as one of our next ad hoc committee meetings to nail down what the assumptions are. And as part of that, I would hope that we don't need to have Alex Handler run a meeting. I think the ad hoc committee could have a public meeting, and members of the community who were interested, correct me if I'm going down a path that you are not willing to go down, Director Behringer, about looking at what assumptions are we basing it on? Are we basing it on an assumption that we're going to build in a cost for the conservation program that the board approved? Are we going to base it on the assumption of what level of water use assumptions are we going to use, and those kinds of things, which we did pretty much iron out at the board level last year when we were looking at the rates. So I don't think that it is. I don't know, is this contract, so he's going to do 200 hours and charge us the hours, or we're going to just pay the flat rate?
No, his estimation is that's what it will take.
That's how many hours, yeah.
And maybe a suggestion, since you're both the ad hoc committee and you really didn't have a chance to review this, what I could do is we could schedule because we're probably going to have a special board meeting. We're going to have a special board meeting. We could schedule an ad hoc committee meeting, and we could just specifically review and discuss the scope with Alex.
I'd like to hear what the other directors who are not on the ad hoc committee have to say about it.
And really kind of home in on it, because Director Behringer indicated that there are things within the scope of work that you didn't really have the chance to evaluate or discuss. So I want you to feel comfortable with it. I want you as the ad hoc committee to feel comfortable with the amount you're paid and the scope of work, while being sensitive to the time restraints and wanting to get this done as soon as possible. But a phone call and an hour or 2 hours on the phone with Alex would probably be helpful to the ad hoc committee. Then he could modify it and come back with something that you're comfortable with, because you're 40% of the board.
Vice President Cliff?
I don't know if that previous one had a option where it was skewed towards the infrastructure as the primary factor within the deal. But one of the things this drought has taught us is that the cost of operating the wastewater plant and the cost of operating the water system has not changed, but usage has dropped, where it's been significant loss of dollars, and that we ought to have base our rates on what the cost to have a system, and then a cost of dollars. And I hope he's skewing things to that way rather than just tearing up how much. Because in the past it was how much water did you use and charge so that you wouldn't use as much. that was more the conservation aspect rather than thinking about the system and what it costs to operate, like we've done with the emergency water treatment plant. We have a very specific amount saying X number of dollars has to be repaid. So,
and one of the things that he did in the past, he would say, well, I'll make an assumption that you're only going to bounce back 20% or something. Well, now we know exactly. He can just change those numbers in a lot of the graphs he had and take out a lot of the options. So he just focuses on one option where you pay per unit. And there's been a recent Supreme Court decision that says you can't go too far as charging more than what it costs, and he knows and understands that. So I'm very supportive of him because he can put a 218 notice out that's going to be defensible, and that's important. But other than that, I have great admiration for our own finance manager to be able to come up with a rate that he knows would come up. But for proper 218 purposes, I think we need Bartles and Wells, but I think that we should limit his scope to one solution rather than giving it.
And that item did come up as part of the ad hoc discussion as the base assumptions is to look at, which is making sure we cover more of those fixed costs as a fixed and not a, because we have to have not just resilience with our water supply, but resilience with our financial supply when it comes to drought, and we have to ask people to cut back because there is fixed costs that we can't do anything about.
And in the past, we'd had more of a conservation emphasis rather than.
But starting
what we're
at
running
6
into
units,
now is
right.
a system that's old and deteriorating and is going to have to be replaced. And so you got to talk about the system rather than forcing people to use less water because you charged them more the more they used.
We need to have income that's stabilized for depending, so that the amount of water that gets used is less volatile with our financial status. And I think both Director Berenger and I are dedicated to making sure that happens.
If it pleases the President, what I'd like to do is have the board approve Bartles and Wells as involved in our rate study and authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement that will be brought back to the board and also incur any hourly charges during ad hoc committee discussions that might be needed. Period. And so what I'd like to, so at least the board says, okay, we're going with Bartles and Wells. We're going with a proposal from them. We might ad hoc try and refine this proposal. It'll be brought back for signature, so to speak, with the board meeting, maybe the first one in September. And then with that said, the ad hoc committee will try and refine the scope of work so that the contract doesn't say $40,000, not to exceed $40,000. I'm hoping we can get it to, a smaller number, but I think we need more discussions with Mr. Bartles and Wells. Is that acceptable?
That seems good, and I just wanted to say, and we're needing a second too, but I hadn't commented yet. I just agree with everything that I'm hearing. We want for this a rather specified service. We know because we've had the smorgasbord and the broad array. So we're paring it down to what we really believe we need, are our priorities. And I like what you're saying, too, because I want, before we approve this, to do that, to pare it down with them, and then also the bottom line, bring it so we know exactly what it is.
All right. And the one thing I like, the one thing I really, really like is on, I don't have the page here, but it's a schedule. I want to stick with that schedule. I want to. I want to start charging money.
That's the next question.
January 1st.
Can you stick with that schedule with?
Right.
I can't speak for Alex Handler and Bartle Wells, but based on all the discussion that the board's had in his previous work and the motion by Director Berenger I would say yes. I mean, I think that we're not asking him to rewrite it. We're asking him to work with staff in the ad hoc committee, redefine it, tighten it up, reduce the cost, stay on the timeline, and Alex is a kind of go-to guy and can do it, and I would say yes. I really would.
Procedurally, I'll second that motion.
Okay. All right.
And I just under discussion, I completely agree, and I think that what we've got here is kind of his boilerplate agreement, and I think if we ask him to kind of look at it a little bit based on a lot of direction that we did give him last year as a board on the whole, that we can pare down all of the various options, and the assumptions will be much more solid. And I think I'd like to thank very much our finance person for getting the information that he's already requested to Alex. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of that.
It was a plethora of information that was sent to you. I mean, it was unbelievable. Madam President, if it's okay with you and the board, Patrick's kind of quiet over here. Do you have anything you want to add about as a finance manager?
No, I think it's a good direction. I think we can comply with it.
I would just like to thank you for your work already at this point. It seems like we do have a good timeline we can stay with, and that what we're asking for now is a refinement, very specifically, not boilerplate, but targeted for our priorities. That sounds excellent. Any further discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
Director Berenger?
Yes.
President Robinette?
Yes.
Director Rice?
Yes.
Vice President Clift?
Yes.
Director Thompson?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, no other items under item 10. And we move now to item 11. And before we adjourn, first I'll be calling for public comment. And we have a request for public comment from Tina Dickinson.
Yes, Tina Dickinson. On agenda item 11B, closed session regarding the Landwatch lawsuit, I would just want to make this point.
Monique, excuse me, that's not you.
You okay?
No.
Okay, I just want to make this point that I have been following very carefully the Prop 84 funding, the process. I have the Prop 84 agreement from the DWR. I've been reading it very carefully, and I have noted, and I've talked to them about it, is that it's not just the litigation of Landwatch. There are other issues, and to say that from the general manager to say, I want to emphasize the severe financial impact that Landwatch lawsuit's having and will continue to have on the community and the CSD in terms of cash flow, blah blah blah. I would say it's $160,000 to date. I would say that the PIO and the lobbyist for the year would actually come to that amount. And then I would also say this, that in reading the Prop 84 funding agreement, the other issue that I think is critical is whether a regular CDP is required for you guys to get the funding, a regular CDP. And I would think that you've been talking to attorneys and regarding that. So to just point out the $160,000 that Landwatch has cost the district is peanuts compared to the $4.5 million that we've overrun from the $9 million loan that we have on the backs of the ratepayers. So we don't know for sure yet, but there could be good news coming to you maybe on the funding. All I'm saying is that there's another issue besides Landwatch, and that is whether you'd require a regular CDP for the funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have no further business, and so I will make an motion that we adjourn to closed session. Do we have a second? Beg your pardon?
Yeah, when you adjourn to closed session, you should list what.
Okay, so we're going to adjourn to closed session to address the items A and B.
It's appropriate to refer to the items as listed on the agenda.
As listed on the agenda. Thank you. Do you have a second now?
Yeah. I think we can, I don't think you need a
Well,
second.
it's my
I'll
coach always
second.
says, get a second.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to adjourn, and so let's adjourn to closed session.